Hello! If you're watching live on YouTube right now, we are just about to start Camp Crochet. If you want to join live, you can join at campcrochet.com. There should be a link in the bio or in the chat right now. If you join Camp Crochet, you'll need a designer level membership to join the actual Zoom. Obviously, everything will be casted here on the live stream as well. This is going to be a crash course in crochet, and then a crochet along where we're going to be making a pattern together, and then a design along after that where we're going to be designing a brand new pattern live together. Yeah, so if you want to join, you can join at campcrochet.com, and yeah. All right, see you guys in a sec. All right. We're going to get started in probably about like 3 minutes, maybe a little longer. But we're going to be going pretty soon. If you want to join, again, you can join at campcrochet.com if you're watching live on YouTube. If you're on Zoom, hi. We've got a few people already here. Hello to Christina and Zoe and Cooper and Arts and Crafts by Hank and Nicole. Very excited. Now, today's Camp Crochet is going to be much more simplified than future Camp Crochets. Simplified? Is that the right way to say it? Maybe. Yeah, of course. You can absolutely Arts and Crafts by Hank. You can put your name as whatever you'd like it to be. Yeah, so today's Camp Crochet is going to be much more simplified than future Camp Crochets because it is for a complete beginner. In the future, we're going to be doing more advanced crochet tutorials. Our next one, which is scheduled for October 22nd, is going to be Beyond the Bobble Stitch, where we're going to be going in depth about the bobble stitch, a bunch of different ways to make bobble stitches, how to use bobble stitches, stuff like that. But today's is going to be very much for beginners. Yes, so if you have questions and you are a beginner, this is going to be your opportunity to ask. And then hello to the YouTube chat as well. I can see it. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to paying attention as much to the YouTube chat today. We're going to be focusing more on our Zoom chat. However, hello Tina. Hello Amber. Amber asks, they wanted to join the Zoom, but they don't have a membership. How much does a designer membership cost? Well, actually, the designer membership is discounted, and actually next week I think is the last opportunity to get the ultra super duper discount. It's $5.99 a month. Oops, $5.99 a month until next week. After that, it's going to be up more than double that. It's going to be $12.99 a month after that. And you can get a free trial to see if it's something you're interested in. So I think you can just get going there. Also, I don't think you need a designer membership today. I think you might just be able to do it with a pattern membership as well, which you definitely can get a free trial for. But seriously, if you have been considering getting a designer membership, like really, I highly, highly suggest getting one right now, because you will be grandfathered in at that low, less than half the cost price. What are we making? What colors do we need? Good question, Hank. We are going to be doing... The start of this is going to be just more of a tutorial. You can use kind of any yarn you want. It's going to be learning how to crochet. That's going to be probably for the first hour, maybe hour and a half. I've done it in 45 minutes. I've practiced it a couple times because I'm kind of nervous. But in the... and then the crochet along portion will probably be about an hour. And in that portion, we're going to be making a pattern that you're going to be able to vote on. We'll either be making a whale, a pet rock, or a whale, pet rock, or classic hearts. And then after that, to finish up our live stream today, we'll be designing a hat live. So basically, the colors that you're going to need, the yarn that you're going to need, that's kind of a little bit going to be subjective, up to you. Michelle! Oh my gosh, Michelle's here. Hi, Michelle. Okay. I think it's time to get rocking and rolling. What do y'all think? Let's switch it to this one real quick. All right. And then, so that's there. Sorry, there's like a gazillion different things I'm trying to like juggle at once here. Okay, let's rock and roll. I am recording, right? You bet your bippy I'm recording. Wait, am I recording? Oh, wait, I wasn't recording. Now I'm recording. Okay. All right, welcome to Camp Crochet. And, oopsies. Yeah, wait, back that up. There we go. Welcome to Camp Crochet. Thank you so much for being here. Hello, everybody in our Zoom. This is our very first Camp Crochet. I strongly believe that I will make a couple mistakes here, and that's okay. You know, stuff happens every now and then. But I apologize in advance if I do have any technical difficulties or if anything is a little goofy today. I'm going to do my best. What is Camp Crochet? Well, let's talk about that. Welcome to orientation. Welcome to your first Camp Crochet. I am Louie. I'm going to be your counselor for today, aka your teacher. I've been crocheting for maybe not over 20 years. I think I'm about to get to 20 years. And I've been designing for about that entire time. I'm the creator of Club Crochet, and I've been teaching how to crochet, I think, for that entire time as well. So I'd like to think that I'm pretty experienced, especially when it comes to amigurumi. What is Camp Crochet? Camp Crochet is a mix of 3 different things. We're going to start Camp Crochet with a workshop where we're going to be learning a new technique. Today's technique is going to be focused for complete beginners because it is our first one. In the future, our techniques are going to be a little bit more complicated. We're going to be going into detailed instructions on specific stitches, how to design your amigurumi, how to... there's a lot of topics. We're going to learn how to make eyes, how to make weapons, things like that. But today's is going to be relatively simplified. We're going to start with our workshop where we're going to be learning Amigurumi 101. After that, we'll do a crochet along where we'll crochet a pattern together that's based on the tutorial. Today's crochet along we'll go through. It's going to be for a beginner pattern, and it will be up to you guys, but we'll talk about that in a second. And then we're going to finish up with a design along where I'm going to design a brand new pattern live with you. And you're going to have that opportunity to ask any, to like give suggestions for what we want to design and kind of see a bit behind the curtain of what it's like to design patterns. The design along will be a little bit shortened. In the future, we might do more in-depth design along tutorials, but today's is going to be relatively simple because we're doing quite a lot in one fell swoop. All right, let's talk about today's camp agenda. Let's start with our workshop. Our workshop today, like I've been saying, is going to be Amigurumi 101. This is a crash course in crocheting, critters, characters, creatures, all that fun stuff. I just realized, sorry, I know that was really loud. I need this so I can show you how to upload pictures and stuff later. I totally forgot to get that set up. There we go. Okay. So that's what our today's workshop is going to be. It is designed for complete beginners. Again, I know I've said that like 4 times now. Today's crochet along is going to be a choose your own adventure between 3 different designs. We're going to vote later today. Yeah, later on. And then today's design along, we're going to be making a brand new custom hat for our pattern, and then we're going to add it to the website after today's course. There's a few different ways you can actually access our courses today. It is going to be on the website. You can find it at campcrochet.com. There should be a link to go straight to the course. There should be a link as well to go to the Zoom. I got a fly. Oh boy, there's a fly in here. For our finale, we're going to be doing a sew and tell, where we're going to be showing off our pieces. That's what I was just getting prepared. We're going to be showing off our pieces together on Zoom, and then I'm going to show you how to actually upload your finished creations on the website as a community submission, so it'll be actually on the lesson today. You'll see your finished projects. Let's talk about the materials that we're going to need today. That seems pretty important. First up is the yarn. We're going to be using worsted weight yarn and 100% cotton. That's my favorite kind of yarn to use. We're going to be using our special Amigurumi Club Crochet yarn. There's a bunch of different kinds of yarns you can use, but for our beginner course today, any yarn will work. You can use any kind of yarn. Chunky yarn, thin yarn. I mean, I wouldn't use really fuzzy yarn. I'd use something a little bit more simple, but an acrylic yarn will totally work. It doesn't really matter. But what's really going to be important here is you want a hook that works with the yarn you're going to be using. For us, we're going to be using a size G6 4mm crochet hook, but if you're using bigger yarn, you're going to need a bigger crochet hook. For example, if you're using chunky yarn, you might want a gigantic crochet hook here. You can see on screen, that's a big crochet hook. Here's the one we're using. For difference. This is going to be used for like big chunky yarn. So this is a size P16 crochet hook, for example. It's going to be dependent on what kind of yarn you use. But if you have questions about that during today's workshop, I will be happy to help. You also need eyes. We're going to be learning how to make eyes out of yarn as well today. But if you want, I find it's a little bit easier to use safety eyes. We'll talk more about what that means later on. But if you don't have that, black yarn and a needle will work. You'll need scissors for cutting stuff. This is actually a pretty low sew pattern, so you don't need to cut too much today, but obviously you're going to need some scissors. And then you're going to need a darning needle. A thicker darning needle with a crimped end is a little bit easier to use, but any kind of needle will work as long as you can get your yarn into the hole of your needle. Finally, you'll need some stuffing for stuffing. Okay, so that's all the materials you're going to need. Let's now talk about some important info before we get into today's workshop. Important things. First off, if you have questions during today's lesson, please use the comments to ask any questions. You could use the comments on Zoom. I'll be much more able to answer those questions than I will on YouTube. However, I am live on YouTube today as well. So if you are on YouTube, I'll do my best to check in every now and then. I believe Cooper's also checking in there. Cooper, if anybody's got a really big important question in the YouTube chat, please go ahead and add it into the Zoom chat, and I'll do my best to answer them as well. During today's course, we will have opportunities for you to ask questions with your cameras if you're in Zoom. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. You can raise your hand using the little button that looks like a little hand icon. There will be a special Q&A section where I'll be able to call on you and answer your questions. And then we'll also be doing that later on our crochet along portion. Will you be creating a playlist in YouTube? Asks Michelle on Zoom. Yes. Probably not actually. No. This will only be on the website, so you'll be able to find it it'll be its own lesson, and it will be added after the fact. please be respectful, especially if you're in the Zoom, obviously. You're on camera. Thank you for the thumbs up, Michelle. You are on camera today. That means that, you know, don't do anything you wouldn't want to be seen forever, because this is going to be uploaded on the website. And I'd rather not go through all the work to edit everything out. Yes, Cooper is watching you. If you are under 18, please just turn your cameras off. This is for safety and privacy reasons. I'd rather, you know, be safe. Feel free to come in and out of today's Zoom if you want to. If you'd like to join, if you're watching on YouTube, you can find it just at campcrochet.com. There should be a button to enter. And feel free to jump in and out. We'll be admitting people in throughout today's Camp Crochet. This will, like I said, be available for rewatch after the fact. You can find it on the website already. I did my best to create a real in-depth course with all the written instructions for today's course. And then after today, I'm going to be adding in pictures and GIFs and stuff to make it a little bit more easier to read. You can save this lesson to your library, though, as well. Finally, join the chat on Zoom to vote. When we have our little votes, we're going to be using the Zoom chat to vote today. Which means we probably won't get that many votes, but that's okay, because that means my vote is going to matter a little bit more. Today's workshop is going to be Amigurumi 101. Let's just get into it. Now, like I said, this is a complete beginner course, so we're going to be taking our time today, but let's look at what we got. Look at that. Isn't that cool? I'm proud of myself. I think it looks really cool. All right, so let's go again through the materials really quick. We're using worsted weight yarn, 100% cotton. You can use any kind of yarn you want. This is just my favorite kind of yarn to use. Worsted weight means the thickness of the yarn. There's different kinds of thickness. There's bulky yarn, thin yarn. Worsted weight is usually what people use for amigurumi. That, or they use a chunky yarn like a chenille yarn. But for my case, I'm almost 95% of the time using a worsted weight yarn for amigurumi, and especially cotton. I really like using cotton for amigurumi, but again, you can use anything that you really want to. These are available in kits, by the way, if you want to purchase any kits. This is what we're making in our Amigurumi 101 course. It's something real simple. We're just making a ball with eyes and a mouth. Nothing can be easier than that, and we're going to learn all the basics to learn how to crochet while we make that. You will need your crochet hook. We're using a size G4 millimeter, like I said earlier. Favorite kind of hook to use with the yarn we're using. Scissors for the whole cutting parts. Needle for sewing in hard to reach stitches. That's why I like using these crimped end. Anything that you can get your yarn into that needle is going to be useful, though. And then safety eyes. Like I said, we're going to be learning how to use not safety eyes later, but these are going to be clutch, especially when it comes to amigurumi. I really like using safety eyes. In fact, for the first 4 years of my crochet career, I did not use safety eyes, and then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked, and then I used safety eyes instead, and it made my life a lot better. So I highly suggest getting some safety eyes. You can find these on pretty much at any hobby store. You can find them online, a bunch of different places. We have them available in the shop as well. Your size safety eye, I like using somewhere between a 6 and 10 millimeter safety eye. I believe we're going to be using 10 millimeter today for our main project, probably 6 millimeter for our smaller project. Okay, we'll put that to the side though. We'll move this to the side, and let's get into the actual tutorial and start with how to hold your yarn and hook. I know, real simple stuff here. We're going to be starting with the basics. First off, let's talk about how to hold the hook. There are two ways that people like to use their crochet hook. There is the pencil method and the spoon method. The pencil method is going to be like this. I don't like using the pencil method. I pretty much never use the pencil method. It makes it really difficult for you to get in and out of stitches. You don't have a lot of range of movement. The fly is back. Okay, whatever. We'll get over that guy. The better method to use, especially for amigurumi, is going to be this method here. This is called the spoon grip. You can also call it the knife grip. Some people call it that. I really like the spoon grip because you have more angling you can do with the tip of your crochet hook. You can have more control, and then you also have more power, so you can pull through easier and stuff like that. So I highly suggest using the spoon grip for your tutorial today, and especially in amigurumi in general. I just highly suggest using the spoon grip. Now, how to hold the yarn. There's a bunch of different ways to hold the yarn. What you really need to know when you're holding yarn is two things. One, you need one part that is holding the tension of the yarn, so you have control over the tension. And then you need you need your little grabbers. You need your pinchers right here. Those are the real two things that you need when it comes to holding the yarn. People have a lot of different ways they hold it. Some people like to weave in and out of their fingers, their back three fingers here, so that you have easier control over your tension. I personally just like to hold it like this. I think it's easiest to do it. Just hold it in your back three fingers like that, and that will help you control your tension a little bit easier. Sometimes people like using rings that'll help hold their yarn in place. I don't really like that. Chat, if you have any suggestions on how you like to hold your yarn, please feel free to share that with the class. And then the other thing you need other than the tension holding part is your pinchers. You need your index and your thumb for pinching your piece. Your yarn goes over your index finger usually. It kind of moves its way around. But what's going to be important here is you need these two fingers so that you can pinch your piece so that you can more easily work your crochet hook into certain spots. So that's going to be how to hold the yarn and hook. As I didn't mention earlier, but I should have, everything we're going to be going over today, if I'm going too quickly, if it's too confusing, there is a completely 101 course that you can find at crocheting101.com. That's going to be our way more in-depth tutorial on how to crochet for complete beginners. This is a crash course for crochet. We're jumping straight into it. You don't need to know how to crochet at all, but if you're a little bit of a slower learner, you want more pictures, you want more videos, I have created a whole crazy big in-depth booklet called Crocheting 101. You can find it at crocheting101.com. So if you're ever stuck. Okay, let's move on to actually starting to make something and start with the magic loop method. Now, magic loop method, I'm just going to make it really quick. We'll go through how to make it in a second. But the magic loop is going to create this cute little loop that you're going to work your first stitches in, so that when you pull this tail end, it'll tighten that loop up around your stitches and create a tight hole at the beginning of your crochet. The magic loop is by far one of the most important things you want to learn in your crochet. There's a bunch of different ways to make it. I have video tutorials where I'll go through different methods to make it, but today I'm going to teach you my favorite method, unquestionably my favorite method. It makes it way, way easier to do, and that is going to be like this. You want to take your yarn with your non-dominant hand, with the tail end facing downwards towards the ground. You want to pinch it with your middle finger and thumb, like that. Kind of hold it off to the side. Now you want to go over your index finger and middle finger 2 times. You're looking to try to create an X on the front towards you. So notice how I went like that. I kind of like went over it like this to make that X. And then you'll have 2 parallel lines on the back away from you. X on the front, 2 parallel lines on the back. Then you want to take your tail end here and your end attached to the ball, and we're going to place it in between your ring and pinky finger like this and close it in. That's going to be how to just hold it into place. Let's do that one more time. Tail end facing towards the ground, pinched with your middle and thumb, with your ring and pinky over to the side. In fact, you can take this tail end and move it over to your ring and pinky early like that. Now you want to go over that index finger and middle finger 2 times. 1, 2. Notice how I went over the other one to make that X. Take this end and our other tail end here, and we're going to go in between these 2 fingers and just hold it into place like that. Now with the back of your hand facing you, we could take your crochet hook. You want to go with your crochet hook under this first bar here, and then on top of the second bar there. Once it's on the second bar, it's hooked on. You can pull it under that, and then you want to loop it around. Notice how I'm like going down, pointing down, and I kind of loop around like that. And it creates this little loop at the end of our crochet hook. Once that loop's on the crochet hook, we can finish this magic loop up. We need to go over this first bar now and hook onto that second bar. The easiest way to get that hooked onto your crochet hook, you kind of can guide it onto your crochet hook using your index finger like that. It helps you get it onto the crochet hook. Then once it's on that hook, you can twist it to line it up with the hole. See how the hole has kind of like an oblong shape to it? You can kind of see it right there. If I twist my crochet hook to line up with that hole, it'll make it easier to get in and out of the hole. And then once it's lined up, you want to scoop it twist it and then scoop it. Notice how I'm like really scooping it through. That'll help you get out of your loops a lot easier. It's going to make your life a million times easier. The scoop method is clutch. Okay, so we finished that. We pulled through. It's all locked into place. We can take it off our fingers now. That is the magic loop. Now, what's really cool about the magic loop, like I said, when you pull this tail end, it's going to tighten this hole up. And we're going to tighten it up till it's about the size of like a dime today. For our first round of stitches, where we're going to be learning our first stitch, we're going to work into the center of this loop. That's going to be our first stitch. So when we say like we're working into a stitch, it's going to be into this magic loop for our first round. Let's move on to that though. Any questions have I missed any questions? Let's find out. Looks like we're good. All right, cool. Yeah, I think we're good. Amber in the YouTube chat says they wrap their yarn around their pinky 2 times to hold the piece between their thumb and middle finger for holding their yarn. So there's the little tip from the YouTube chat for you. All right, let's move on now to round 1. Now I know this looks ultra confusing. What the heck does all that mean? Don't worry about that. We're going to get to that in a second. But what we want to learn in round 1 is we want to learn our main stitch, the single crochet. 99% of the time when I'm making amigurumi, we're using the single crochet. It is the main stitch you ever want to learn in your crochet is going to be the single crochet. It is extremely important for crochet. And so let's go ahead and learn it. For the single crochet, we're going to grab the yarn using our spoon grip. Grab the hook using our spoon grip so that our thumb and index are pretty close to the tip of the crochet hook. You want to get really close to the tip because it's easier to control it that way. With our non-dominant, we're going to hold it in our 3 fingers here, going over our index finger so that we have our pinchers to grab the piece itself. So I'm going to grab the loop right here at the end so that we have like space to work into it. Okay, now the single crochet, it's actually not too crazy. What you want to do is you want to take your crochet hook here and we want to go into the stitch with it. So in this case, the loop itself is the stitch. So we're going to take a crochet hook, go straight down into the stitch. Now we want to yarn over the crochet hook. So once the crochet hook's in there, we want to take our yarn here and go over our crochet hook. There's 2 ways to do this. Some people yarn under the crochet hook like that. Some people yarn over. I really like yarning over. In a future tutorial, we'll learn the difference between the 2. For now, yarn over. It makes your life a lot easier for right now. So yarn over your crochet hook. Once the yarn is over your crochet hook, we can pull it under the stitch. So now this won't really be that necessary for right now, but just to get you into the motion, twist it to line up with the hole, scoop it under the stitch. Okay, now you have 2 loops on the hook. We're nearly done with our single crochet. What you want to do to finish up your single crochet, you want to go over the stitch. So we're not going to go back into the hole. We're going to go over it instead and yarn over our crochet hook again, like that. Once you've yarned over your crochet hook, you want to pull that new loop through the 2 loops on the hook. The easiest way to do that, you know it, twist it to line up with the hole, scoop it under all of them. And you just want to pull through both of those loops like that. And that's going to be your single crochet. That's going to be the main stitch we're going to use. In this first round, you can see right there, single crochet 6 times into the magic loop. That's what SC stands for. We're going to go through abbreviations in a little bit. But just know when you see SC, it means single crochet. You'll also want to, we don't need that stitch marker just yet. You also want to know this number in the back here. We're going to go over this again in the future. That's going to be how many stitches you have at the end of your round. We're going to count those in a second as well. But what we want to know here is we want 6 of those single crochets into our magic loop to start. So we've done 1. Let's do another one. Take your crochet hook, go into the stitch. The hole itself is the stitch. Yarn over your crochet hook and grab it back. Grab your piece with your index and thumb and scoop it under. Now we have our 2 loops on our hook. We yarn over our crochet hook and scoop it under. We twist and scoop it under those 2 stitches, 1 and 2. You can count your stitches easiest. See those V's along the edge right there? That's going to be how we're going to be counting stitches throughout our piece. Where this loop is coming out is going to be your first stitch. So we got 1 and 2 V's there. Okay, let's keep doing it. We want 6 of those. into the stitch, yarning over the crochet hook. See how I kind of like automatically yarn over it because of the way I put my crochet hook in there too? We're going into the stitch and I'm kind of automatically going under that because see how I'm like holding that yarn away like this? It's just automatically kind of going under the yarn, so we're yarned over right away. Then we're pulling that under our stitch, going over the stitch, yarning over again, and pulling through those two, 1 and 2. There we go. All right, 1, 2, 3. We want 6 of those. Let's go ahead and do 3 more. Into the stitch, yarning over, under the stitch, over the stitch, yarning over, and pulling through 2, 1 and 2. Okay, 2 more times. Into the stitch, yarn over, under the stitch, over the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, 1 and 2. Now later on we're going to be talking about gauge, we're going to be talking about tension. What you want to know here is just try not to crochet too tightly. You're good, especially if you're a complete beginner. Amber on YouTube says you're a bit quiet. Thank you so much, Amber. I can't do anything about that. Sorry, I can't do anything about it. I'm turned up as much as I can on the live stream part. So sorry about that, Amber. Okay. We have one more stitch here. What I wanted to say about tension was you just want to try not to crochet too tight in the beginning. We're going to, again, talk about this a little bit later, but just too tight is going to be a problem. Too loose will be a little bit of a problem, but not as big of a problem as too tight. Tight is an issue because you're not going to be able to get your crochet hook back into the stitches later. So just try to chill a little bit and not hold your yarn really, really tight. Just try to chill a little bit. All right, we got one more here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Into the stitch, yarn over, under the stitch, pull through, over the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, 1 and 2. All right, now to count the stitches, see where that loop is coming out here? I'm going to hold my yarn, hold it over so I can grab a needle to show you a little bit easier. Okay, so see where that loop is coming out? We're going to count back all these V's to make sure we have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is going to be right there. We have all 6 of our stitches for round 1. Before we finish up this round, though, and pull this magic loop tight, let's learn about stitch markers. Okay, so there's a bunch of different ways to use stitch markers. A lot of people like using, let's see, I pulled one out yesterday. Here it is. A lot of people like using these things for stitch markers. They're called, wait for it, a stitch marker. I personally don't like using these things, but I feel like it's important to explain it. Basically what this little guy doodad is, it's a kind of like a safety pin. So you can pull it under like that and it'll unlock like this. And then you take this end and you go around your very last stitch like this. So we go like into our last stitch like that, like something like that. And then you'd lock it into place. I don't like doing this because that means that at the end of every single round, you have to unlock it and undo it, and it's annoying. Just facts, it's annoying. Instead, we are going to be using a technique where we're going to be working around yarn as we go as our stitch marker. This is going to let us keep track of the stitches a lot more easy, and then also easy to remove. So what we want to do is we want to take some yarn in a separate color. We're going to be using red today, and we don't need a very long end, like probably that long. So like, what is that, like 4 inches maybe? Cut it, and this is what we're going to be using as our stitch marker. We want to take the very end of this and place it right into the center of our magic loop. Okay, you don't want to place it all the way in, just a little bit like that. Oops, let's do that again. Into that magic loop like that. And we're just going to hold it off to the side with our crochet hook in our hand like that. There we go. So that it's right into the center of the magic loop. Now we're going to take our tail end from the end of the magic loop and we're going to tighten this really tight. I like to hold right at the very base of our stitch there and then the base of the tail end, and we're just going to pull it nice and tight and it's going to close that hole up just like that. And it closed around this strand of yarn. We're going to pull it really tight though. I'm going to like basically hold it like this and then pull it tighter. There we go. Now what we can do is we can take this tail end and fold it over the end of our piece. And then now this red line, let's pull it a little bit further so there's no little tail end at the other side. There we go. Fold it over our piece. And now this little line is going to mark where the ends of our rounds are. And it's going to make our life a lot easier as we go. Okay. That is going to be the end of round 1. We did it. Good job, team. Wow. Hold on. There we go. Any questions? Kaylin says they find the ones useful if you have a lot of rows in... Oh, the stitch marker's useful if you have a lot of rows with the same count. Example, if you have 20, you can mark every 5th row. That is good to know. Yeah. Yeah, I love us all celebrating too. All right, let's move on to round 2. Okay, round 2 is when we're going to learn. I know this looks like freaking jibber jabber. Who knows what the heck that says? But what we want to know here is in round 2, we're going to be increasing in each stitch around. Let's first talk though about what that means. What does it mean working in the round? Round? What is that? What that means is when we work in the round, we're going to be continuously working around in a spiral without turning. There's 2 ways to crochet. There's flat and there's in the round. Things that are worked flat are basically like scarves, blankets, things where you go to the end of a row and then you go up and then you turn and you go back down that row. Up, turn, up, turn, up, turn. That's worked flat. In amigurumi, very much most often, you are not working flat. You're working in the round, which means that we're working in a spiral without turning. You never have to turn in this entire piece. We're just going to keep going around and around and around and around until our piece gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we sew it closed. That's what it means to be working in the round. Every pattern is going to have this written down. It's going to either say worked in the round or worked flat. Oh, Michelle had a great way to say it. Think of it as working 3D or working 2D. In the round is going to make your pieces 3-dimensional. Working flat is going to be making it 2-dimensional. Thank you, Michelle. Great tip there. All right, now let's talk about where to work your stitches. Now in the very beginning, we worked all of our stitches into the magic loop. That was our stitch, was the magic loop itself. But in round 2, and going further along from this, when you work your stitches, you're going to be working into one of the previous stitches in the round above that. So for round 2, we're going to be working into round 1's stitches as we make our single crochets. Where though? That's a really good question, Louie. For working your stitches, what you want to do is you want to look at the top. Remember those V's that we counted from before? Getting really close here. The V's are split into 2 different parts. There's the front loop, which is the one that's closest to you, and the back loop, which is the one that's furthest away from you. That's going to be important later on for a stitch, like way later on. And for sometimes in patterns, they'll say like only work in the front loops or whatever. For most of our crochet though, you want to work under both of these loops at the same time. So this one right here is the front one. See, it's the closest to us. This one back here is the back one. It's furthest away from us. Right there, that's the back one. That's the front one. For crocheting amigurumi, we want to work under both of those loops. For crocheting pretty much anything, you want to work under both those loops usually. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get our crochet hook just like this under both loops. Now the very first stitch specifically, ooh, my neck just really wanted to crack there. For our very first stitch specifically, it's going to be tough. I don't know why, but always the very first single crochet stitch is always the hardest one to work into. Even if you're not trying to work tightly, for some reason it always pulls a little tighter. Here's my tip on how to get into that first stitch. If you're having a hard time finding it, count back from this loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be this one right here. And place your crochet hook just under where that front bar is, like that. And then place your 2 index fingers on either end of the crochet hook and kind of wiggle and poke a little bit more down and wiggle until you pop right into that crochet hook like that. See how I'm stitched like that. See how we're under both of those loops at the same time? That's what's going to be important here. Now in round 2, what we want to do is we want to create an increase in each stitch. An increase simply means 2 single crochets in the same spot. For crocheting amigurumi, because we're using single crochets the majority of the time, when I say increase, I mean 2 single crochet stitches in one spot. In future patterns, like if you're using a lot of double crochets and it just says increase, they'll basically mean two double crochets into one spot. But that's a stitch for another time. Today we're just learning the single crochet. So when I say increase, it just means 2 single crochets into that one stitch. We're in that stitch right now. Let's do our first single crochet. We remember how to do it, right? We take our crochet hook. We're in the stitch already, so we don't need to worry about that part. We're going to take the yarn over our crochet hook. Now is when that twist and scoop is going to become really important. We want to twist the yarn to line up a little bit more with the hole and scoop it under. What you might find when you do that here is you might accidentally split your yarn. Let me do that by accident, or let me do that on purpose rather. Splitting your yarn looks kind of like that. This is what splitting your yarn is. It's really hard to do with amigurumi, with a club crochet yarn, but basically it means you're pulling halfway through your yarn. This is not good. It's not good. So what you want to do instead of splitting your yarn, if that ever happens, is undo it. Take your crochet hook out and redo that piece, because split yarn is going to make it more difficult in the next round. It's going to make it more difficult in this current round, and it's going to look weird. Just if you have yarn that's split and you catch it ahead of time, undo it, go back to that part and redo it. If you where was I? Splitting yarn. If you missed that you split yarn and it's in like one of the previous rounds, you can try to just power through it and hide those splits in at the end. But it's easiest to just go backwards and undo it and redo it. Okay, so we're in our stitch. Let's get back to this. We want to yarn over our crochet hook, twist it, scoop it under. Now we have 2 loops on our crochet hook. We'll yarn over our crochet hook again, twist it to line it up, and scoop it under like that. We finished our very first single crochet of round 2. Now, like I said, round 2 is all increase stitches, which means that we're putting 2 of these single crochets into every stitch around. How do you find the same stitch you just worked into? You follow the V. Look closely here. Single crochets are kind of split into 2 different V parts. There's that V along the edge that we've noticed, but there's also this V right here. This V is going to take you directly into the stitch that you just worked into. So if you follow that down, that point is going to be right here. That's the same stitch we just worked into. So for our second single crochet, because it's an increase, we want to work into that same stitch. The next stitch over, that's going to be right here. These 2 V's right there. So see, it's 2 different spots. So right now, because we're doing our increase, our second single crochet of our first increase, we want to follow that V into that same stitch right there. So we'll take our crochet hook there, go follow that V right into that same stitch, and it's still that hard one to work into, but yeah, see how like it's kind of difficult for me to get my crochet hook in? That's because it's pretty tight, because I'm nervous, because I'm teaching you how to crochet, so I'm crocheting a little bit more tightly than I normally would probably. So that's just something to know. If you loosen your stitches up, that's going to make your life a lot easier. A couple things from the chat. Christina says acrylic yarn is really easy to split and it's fuzzy, so you don't recommend it for beginners. I think that's a really good tip, Christina. Thank you for that. Yeah, and splitting yarn is really difficult to get around for future stitches as well, so really try not to split your stitches. That's what Hank says. And Hank also says that it's best to learn the average force you need to pull your yarn through the stitch. If it's beyond normal, for example, like you're pulling really tightly, then if it's beyond normal, then it's a really tight stitch. If it's really loose, then it's going to be really easy to get through. There's a very fine line. We're going to learn about tension later on and how you can control that a little bit better. But I will say controlling tension, controlling gauge, which again we're talking about in a second, it comes with experience more than it does practice. I mean, obviously practice is important, but practice requires experience. So you need to continuously try this to get better and better at controlling your stitches. Let's do our second single crochet, because I'm talking way too long here. For our second single crochet, we're in the stitch already. Let me do that. Let me go back into that stitch again. We follow that V down, Let's get this little bits and bops out of the way. There we go. We go follow that V down, take our crochet hook, go into that same spot like that. Yarn over the crochet hook and hook it and twist it and scoop it through. There's the beginning of our second single crochet of our first increase. Yarn over again, pull it through those 2 loops. 1 and 2. Like that. All right, there's our first increase done. This is going to be better later on in like rounds 4 and 5. It'll be easier to see, but if you look really closely at your stitches, now you're going to see you have 2 V's kind of mashed into one spot. That's how to know that you have an increase there. If you have 3 of those V's, then you did 3 stitches in the same spot. You should never be doing 3 stitches in the same spot for this beginner tutorial. Some tutorials later on might use that, but I don't right now. So just, you only want 2 of those V's in one spot. So now we have 2 in one spot. Let's move on to the next stitch. The next stitch is going to be, we're going to follow that V down. We're going to go into the next stitch. That's going to be this V along the edge here, right there. We're going to work our crochet hook right into there and just kind of get in there like that. Now we're in our second stitch. We want to do our second increase. So that means 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Yarn over, twist it, scoop it through. Okay, there's the beginning of our second increase, our first single crochet of our second increase. Yarn over again and pull through these 2. 1 and 2. All right, there's the end of the first single crochet of our second increase. Let's do another one. We're doing an increase now, so we want this in the same stitch. So we're going to follow that V straight down into that stitch. Like this. Yarn over, pull it through the stitch. You have 2 on the loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. All right, that's the end of our second increase. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 stitches so far. That's going to be what's important with these increases. Every time we do an increase, we're increasing our round by 1 stitch. So because we're doing 6 increases in round 2, you know, right here, increase in each stitch around. We did 6 stitches in our first round, so that means we're doing 6 increases in our second round. Each increase has 2 stitches per increase. That means our stitch count is going up to 12 here. So we're upping our stitch count every time we do one of these increases. All right. Increase number 3. We're going to follow that V down and we're going to go into the next stitch over, which is going to be right there. See, so we're not going right here, we're going right here. Finding those 2 loops at the top, wiggling our way into that crochet stitch, yarning over, scooping it under, yarning over, and scooping under 2. 1 and 2 like that. All right, there's our first single crochet of our third increase, which means we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's our 5th single crochet total. We want a 6th single crochet. Every even number is going to be in the same stitch, so that means this one's going in the same spot. Follow that V down, get a crochet in there, yarn over, pull it under the stitch, going over the stitch, yarn over again, and pull through 2, 1 and 2. All right, there's our third increase. We only have a few more to go. Ah, yes. Great tip, Kaylin. Kaylin says that you can control your tension a little bit easier using your non-dominant hand. Your left side is what's controlling the tension. So what you're going to kind of notice, and again, this was meant for a later part of this pattern, but what you're going to notice is as I'm doing my crochet stitches, I'm very slightly adjusting the tension of the stitches as I go. So let's go into our third one here, and I'll show you what that means. Going into our 4th stitch here. So this is our 4th stitch, the first single crochet of our 4th increase. We'll yarn over, pull it under the stitch. Now look at this. What I often do is I often pull it out enough so it's like this big when I start, because I'm pulling it through. Then what you'll see me do very subtly is I'll pull this slightly tighter to tighten that up. I don't want to tighten it too much, but you want to tighten it a little bit. So that's how I'm slowly and slightly adjusting my piece. And again, that's something that comes much more with experience than it does with practice over and over. Okay. All right, let's continue on. Let's keep going. I'm going to finish this single crochet of our 4th increase. There we go. We're going to do another one into the same stitch. Follow that V down. Here's another one. Yarn over. We'll pull it under. Going over the stitch, yarn over again. Pull through 2, 1, and 2. Okay, 2 more. How do I know it's 2 more? Well, you could be counting, but easier way to know is there's our end of our round. We're almost at the end. So I know that there's only 2 more of these V's on the top there, so that means we only have 2 more stitches to work into, which means we only have 2 more increases to make. All right, so into the next stitch right here. Yarn over, pull it under, going over the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, and 2. Okay. There we go. Another one into the same stitch, yarn over, pulling it under the stitch, over the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, 1, and 2. You can do it 1 stitch at a time like I just did it, or you can do it both stitches at a time. That really doesn't really matter. Last stitch is going to be right here, into the stitch, under both of those loops, pull through, over the stitch, 1 and 2, into the same stitch for our very last single crochet, our 12th final single crochet, into that same stitch, pull through 2. Okay, that's going to be the end of round 2. Let's count our stitches back. Follow this loop coming out of our crochet hook to find our first stitch and count that around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. It's going to be right after that line. We have 12 stitches. If your stitch count is more than 12, if you're at 13, you messed up somewhere. Go back, do your increases again. If you have 10 stitches, you missed an increase somewhere. You might have only done 5 single crochets in the first round, so you only had 5 single crochets to work your increases into, so you only ended up with 10 stitches around. It totally depends on where you messed up, so you might need to like count your way back. It's going to be a lot of looking really close as you learn how to crochet in the beginning. We're going to learn more about how to see the differences of your crochet stitches in a second. If you have 12, but you're not sure if you actually did your increases right, but somehow you ended up at 12 stitches, which is the right number, just power through it. Just ignore that you might have goofed up somewhere and just keep going. In the beginning, to get to the right stitch count, you might end up putting 3 into one stitch, 1 into another, but you ended up at the right stitch count anyhow. That happens. What's more important in the beginning of your crochet journey is you want to just learn how this all works. So you just kind of need to power through and keep going and just make sure you finish it. Just finish the project. Happy little accident, as Hank says. Absolutely true. Okay. A win is a win, as Cooper says. Yes. All right. Now we are on to our third round, round 3, with this gibberish right here. Let's learn now before we really continue round 3. Oh, let's also pull our stitch marker up. So we're going to take this stitch marker here, this red yarn, and we're just going to fold it over our piece like that. And that way we can keep track of the ends of our rounds. So don't forget to do that at the end of the round. We're going to ignore this the best we can. I usually like to hold it in my dominant hand, in like the palm of my dominant hand like that. And it kind of keeps it out of the way as I go. After we do our first stitch, this is going to be way easier to hide like that. But for the first one, just keep it over to the side. But before we really start round 3, we need to learn about how to read your stitches or your patterns. This is going to be a little bit subjective because everybody kind of writes their patterns differently. I have a very, very specific way that I write my patterns that has come through literally 2 decades of practice and learning and figuring out the best way to write patterns. And this is the way I write it. Other people might switch certain things around, but 9 times out of 10 you can figure it out just by context. But let's look at the specifics here. We have a few different things we want to look at. The first thing is brackets. See those little brackets around the single crochet 1, increase 1? That is going to be used to split a round up into different parts. Most often, that's going to be because you need to repeat that part over and over again. But sometimes that split up is because they want to really point out, like, oh, this is how you do this specific part of this pattern, or I need you to work these stitches into one space, or something like that. But just know if something's in brackets like that, that means that all those stitches are together in one piece to be used either repeated or whatnot. For our case here, those split up rounds are going to be repeated. Right here you see 6 times. That means we're going to repeat this first part 6 times. So single crochet 1, that's what that first part means. Don't worry about those abbreviations. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But here we're saying single crochet 1, increase 1, and we want to repeat that same process 6 times total. If you do that, you're going to end up with this parentheses number 18. That's going to be how many stitches you have at the end of your round. Oh, look at me. I'm covering up part of that written instructions. That wasn't thought through, was it, Louie? That's what parentheses means, is you're just putting, that's how many stitches are going to be at the end of your round. In our previous rounds, you saw 12. Now we're going to have 18 because we're increasing it up to 18 stitches around. Let's talk a little bit first before we actually get going about these abbreviations. There's a bunch of different ways to write abbreviations. I highly suggest before you start any pattern, look at the abbreviations. If you haven't worked with this crocheter before, for example. For me, I always use the same abbreviations. ST right here is going to mean stitch. So if you see ST, it means I'm saying stitch. If you see RND right there, RND, that means round. Basically, which step are you on? Currently we're on round 3. That means kind of like step 3. SC, right there, SC, that's going to mean single crochet. That's that stitch that we've been using over and over. INC, that's going to be an increase, 2 single crochets into the same stitch. There's other abbreviations. We're going to learn another one in round 8 later on, but those are the abbreviations you want to know for right now. And so in this round here, again, we're doing 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 increase, repeating that same process 6 times total. Because we're repeating that process 6 times, that means we're doing 6 increases, which means that our stitch count is going up from 12, which is what our stitch count was last round, to 18, because we're adding 6 single crochets into our piece. That was a lot to say, huh? I know. But let's go ahead and figure that out. Let's go and learn how to do round 3. Okay, we got our stitch marker pulled off to the side. We've got this little tail end. We'll just hold that off to the side too. We're going to deal with that after this round as well. But let's go ahead and get going here. For our first stitch, it's going to be right after this red line. We're going to have those 2 lines at the top, and we're going to single crochet into that. Get our crochet hook right into that stitch, right after that red line, like that. Yarn over, twist, scoop. You have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, there's our first single crochet. So our first repeat, half of that has been done. We've done 1 single crochet. Now we want to work into the next stitch. That's what that little comma is representing. Each comma is going to be different stitches. Next stitch here is going to be an increase stitch. So we go into our next stitch over. That's going to be after, so if we follow that V down, we know this was the last stitch we just worked into. We want to work into our next stitch. That's going to be right here under both of those loops. We want to do an increase. Crochet hook into both loops. Do 1 single crochet. Pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And then another one into that same stitch. So we follow that V down into that same stitch. Yarn over, pull it under it. Yarn over, pull through 2, 1 and 2. Okay, 1 single crochet, 1 increase. We have done our bracket. 1 single crochet here, 1 increase here, because there's 2 V's in one spot. Now we want to repeat this all the way around, 6 times total. So that was our first repeat. Let's do our second repeat. Go into the next stitch here and do 1 single crochet. And then into the next stitch right here, we're going to do 2 single crochets. There's 1. Follow that into the same stitch. It's going to be 2. I'm going a little bit quicker now. So if I'm going too quick, let me know. But now we have we have 2 of our repeats done. 1 single, 1 increase, 1 single, 1 increase. If we want to count our stitches, every increase is going to now be on our third, in numbers of 3. So in the beginning we have 1, 2, and 3 are an increase. 4, 5, and 6 are an increase. See, that's a multiple of 3. And we're just going to keep doing that. So I'll just keep counting that way now. So our next stitch right here is going to be a single crochet, 7. That's our 7th single crochet. Next stitch right here is going to be an increase, 8 and 9. Okay, 7, 8, and 9. Keep going around. 10. Next stitch. 11. Same stitch. 12. Because it's a multiple of 3, I know it's an increase. I don't really have to keep counting my stitches because I know as long as I keep doing that repeat and I get to the end of this round, I should be good. But it's really nice in the beginning to keep count if you can. Okay, that was 12. 13 will be the next stitch over, and we just did an increase, so now we have a single crochet. Next we have another increase after that single crochet. 14, and in the same stitch will be 15. Multiple of 3, so it must have been an increase. Last repeat here, 16, and then the next stitch right here, 17, and then in the same stitch, 18. That's our last increase, our last single crochet of round 3. And you can see our little cookie guy is getting a little bit bigger. That's because every time we're adding a round of increasing, every time we're increasing in general, you're making your piece bigger. It's bigger, it's getting wider and wider and wider as you add those add those increases in, because your stitch count's getting bigger, the circle is getting bigger and bigger. That's going to be really important for shaping your piece later on and stuff like that. But just know every time you're adding an increase, you're doing that. So if you wanted to, this is going to be for designers later on, but if you wanted to, and you wanted to just maybe put all those increases over here and just have all the single crochets over here, then your piece is going to start to look a little lopsided. It's going to look like this side's getting really big. In fact, it's going to get so big that it's going to start bending its way up and out. And all your pieces right here that are just single crochets, not increases, are going to bend their way in and down. And there's going to kind of create a weird shaping. So that's why you kind of want your increases to be uniform, especially in the beginning, because you want it to be as close to the circle as you can. Technically, we have a hexagon. You can kind of see where the hexagon's getting pointed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's points. But because it's crochet, there's stitches, it kind of rounds itself out as we go. Usually pieces are worked in repeats of 6. Let's continue on now. Any questions? Any questions? Maybe I should check the YouTube as well. Any questions? We're talking about Jimbo in the YouTube chat. We need... Yes. Jimbo is being a nice sleepy boy right now, and we are going to accept that while we can. All right. Next part. We're on rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7. What happened to this round 4? Well, this time we're doing the same thing over and over for 4 rounds total. So here you can see each round it's going to be single crochet, SC, single crochet in each stitch. That's going to be 18 stitches for 4 rounds total. So that means for 4 rounds in a row, all we're doing is single crochets. You don't have to add any increases. You don't need to put 2 stitches in one spot. You just need to put 1 single crochet in each spot. Honestly, when you see rounds like this, it means that we're kind of having a break in our crochet, where it's going to be a little easier. When we're doing our rounds of single crochets, it's going to start adding our height to our crochet, so it's going to start becoming taller here as well. And oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I forgot about one different part before we started this part. Let me back up just a second. I'm going to pull my loop out for just a bit, and we're going to fix this tail end here. So let me back up, and let's fix this tail end. So this is just a little thing to get this out of the way, because it's probably annoying you. I know it's annoying me. And we're also going to be using this tail to create a little tuft of hair at the top of our piece, just to add a little bit of character to it. You don't have to do that. you could just hide this end in and cut it close, but we're going to be using it to create a little bit of a character piece. So what we're going to do is take this little tail end here and thread it onto our crochet hook, or onto our needle. To thread yarn onto a needle, by the way, you take the hole right there. Sometimes you can use your spit to kind of like make it a little easier to twist, but honestly you don't really need to. You can just kind of like twist it like that and it should hold its shape into a smaller piece. Take your hole of your needle, hold it very close, and just kind of like wiggle its way into the needle. If you're using a big darning needle like this, it makes it really easy. All right, once it's threaded onto the needle, what we want to do now is just hide this into a few stitches. I'm going to make this little red part pulled up and away, and what we're going to do is we're going to learn about the fronts and the backs of the stitches in just a little bit, but see, on the back of our stitches here, we have these little lines in between each round. What we can do with this tail end is we can go under this one of these bars here and just kind of hide our stitch into that. So we're just going to go into that bar and pull that through, and then we'll do it again to this next one right here. And 2 is honestly probably enough. And that's just going to keep that from unwinding by accident. And now what we can do is we're going to take this needle, we're going to go straight right back down through the center right here and pull it out the top like that. All right, that should hold everything into place. Let's cut this. I'm going to cut it and leave it kind of long, like this long, to create that tuft of hair. If you just wanted to have that hidden, don't go through the center like that. You don't need to if you don't want to. I'm going to cut it, let's cut it a little shorter. There we go. Okay, back to where we were. Sorry about that. Let's continue crocheting. We'll get to that in a second too. And now we have our 4 rounds of single crochets. So if we're doing 4 rounds of single crochets, we have 18 stitches per round. How many stitches are we going to have by the end? We'll have 72 stitches total. So if you wanted to count your stitches all the way up to 72, instead of counting your rounds, you could just keep crocheting around and around and around until you have 72 stitches. So I'm going to just go ahead and just get that started. We're just going to go into this next stitch here after the stitch marker and start single crocheting. And we're just going to keep doing that around for 4 rounds total. Now, as I go, this is your opportunity to practice a few things. The first thing we're going to practice here is gauge and tension. So I kept talking about that. What is gauge and tension? That's going to be how tightly you're crocheting. The tighter you crochet, the smaller your gauge is going to be. Gauge is a measurement. It's telling you how many stitches and how many rows between stitches. Gauge is really more important if you're crocheting garments because you want it to be the exact size so that you can wear it. In amigurumi, gauge is useful, but it's not the most useful. It's more useful for crocheting garments. If you want to follow gauge along, it's going to depend on the yarn you're using. If you're using the exact same yarn, the exact same crochet hook as the creator, then you hopefully will get the same gauge as him or her. But if you're not, as long as your piece isn't looking too loopy and floppy or too tight and tiny, then you're probably fine on gauge. My gauge ends up being around, I think it's, I measure it in an inch, and I think it's 4 stitches and 5 rounds per inch. So that means if I have a ruler, which I don't, but if I had a ruler, it would be, I always use my knuckle here as an inch. So you can see those 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, fit into that inch of a knuckle, and then 5 rounds. So if I go this way, should be about 5 rounds. It's kind of hard to see, but let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds fit into that inch. So that's my gauge. Again, gauge doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. What's more important here is consistency. Consistency is going to be key. What about garments for amigurumi? Good point, Michelle. Consistency is going to be key. How do you keep things consistent? Well, that's where tension is going to come in. You want to control your tension best you can. Remember, we have these 3 fingers here. That's helping us control our tension as we go. But even better than that is that part between crocheting when I'm pulling it tighter to create that tension to the same for each stitch. That is the pro tip here. So when you go in, you're doing a crochet, you pull it through, And now this is going to be way too loose of a stitch. So I need to pull it tighter. That's the part where you're going to be able to control your tension a little bit easier. Yarn over, pull through 2. And then even after that part, see, I pull that through and it can be open. Then I pull it tighter so it's a little tighter. What you want when it comes to tension is you want it tight enough so that it's kind of like holding its spot on our crochet hook like this, but it still can slide easily in and out. If I did it really tight, yeah, it'll hold its spot easy, but it is really hard to go up and down the crochet hook. If it's too loose, it's never going to hold its spot. You know, to have it too loose, it's always going to fall down to the bottom like that. So the sweet spot is right in between the two. Tightening it enough so that when you're not even holding it, it holds its spot, but it's not too difficult to get the crochet hook in and out. You want it about the thickness of your crochet hook, maybe like a little bit bigger than the thickness of your crochet hook. You can see the hole right there. It's a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's tension and gauge. If you have any questions about tension and gauge as I go here, let me know in the chat. Tension also changes a lot based on your stress level as you're crocheting. You'll find that especially as you get more and more experience in crochet, if you are nervous or you are in a tense situation, you're going to crochet really, really tightly. If you're a little too loosey, maybe you had too many glasses of wine before you started crocheting, you might crochet really, really loose. If you crochet too tightly, your piece is going to end up getting really, really tiny. And then vice versa, if you crochet too loosely, it's going to be too big, it'll be floppy, it won't be able to hold its shape as easy also. And you might even be able to see your stuffing through it. Yes, don't worry about that. Christina is ahead of schedule here. She wants to know how to count stitches, which we're going to look at that in just a second. We just finished our first round here, but before I continue in the next round and answer Christina's question, I want to show you the right side versus wrong side of your stitches. Now that kind of is, what's the word? The wrong term. Right and wrong, that's kind of subjective. Better way to say it is the outside and inside of your crochet. When you're working amigurumi, it's pretty much universally accepted that there is the correct side and the wrong side, the right and the wrong side of your stitches. The right side, or the outside of your stitches, should look like we're looking right now. Just a bunch of V's. So all these V's here, all around it. The wrong side is going to be the opposite side right here. All these little lines in between rows. That's going to be how you can see the difference between the right and the wrong side of your stitches. As we're crocheting, you're going to, especially in these rounds here, you're going to see that your piece will automatically kind of like fold its way over. So it'll either fold inside like that, or you'll fold like this. Just kind of fold it out so that these V's are on the outside. That way you make sure that you're crocheting and seeing the right side versus wrong side. That is one of the main things I see right away when a beginner sends me a picture and they say, look what I made. I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. You crocheted it on the wrong side. And I can tell that because it's all inside out like this. You can see all these lines in between. And it's a really easy mistake that beginners make, is crocheting on the wrong side. Next thing is it out? No, there it is. There we go. It's counting your rounds and stitches. Exactly what Christina asked. How do you count your rounds and stitches? What if I got lost? Where am I? Who am I? Ah! Well, here's how to count your rounds and stitches. Now, obviously, this stitch marker is doing a lot of the work for us. That's going to help us keep track of our rounds. How to count your stitches? Well, you're going to count those V's along the edge. We learned that earlier, right? So we should have our 18 stitches around here. But there's actually a easier trick to doing this. That's going to be being able to notice the difference between an increase and a single crochet. If we look at our crochet, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier too. There's a big difference, well, not a big difference, there's a subtle difference between a single crochet and an increase. If you look closely here, this V right here, all these V's, they're each going to be a single crochet. So all these V's are single crochet. But if you see here, see these two? These two are kind of jammed into one spot. That is an increase stitch. That means that two are in one space, and that is where we put an increase. If you're crocheting around and you see 3 V's into one spot, especially in this beginner thing, you've messed up. You got to go back, you got to undo that. But noticing the difference between where your increases are and your single crochets are is going to be my trick for how to count your stitches without ever having to count your stitches. Because what I do is I just look for where that last increase is. And I know that's the end of our round. I can tell it's the last increase because if I keep looking around, this is what I'm consistently doing in my crochet. I never use a stitch marker. The only reason I use stitch marker is for you. For me, I don't need a stitch marker because what I do is I just look ahead. I'm always looking ahead of my piece. So I'm looking, let me do one more round here really quick. I'm gonna pull my stitch marker up. I'm on round 5, by the way, if you are also crocheting along with me. Let me go ahead and get this round pretty much finished so I can show you. As I'm going here, I can tell where each increase is because I'm looking down. I'm consistently looking down to where an increase is under that. And if there is no increase in that same spot, so if I'm like going like this, and we're coming to the end here, let's get all the way to the end here, and we're going to pretend this stitch marker isn't even here too, by the way. A few more stitches. So finding out where those single crochets and those increases are going to be the best way to count your rounds as well. Okay, so we reached the end of this round, pull that over. I can tell, let's pretend that stitch marker, those red lines aren't there. I can tell that's the end of the round because if I look forward, see if I keep following this increase over, well there's no increase right here, but there should be. If that was not the end of the round, that would be an increase stitch. So there'd be 2 in the same spot. So if I did this in the middle of the round, for example, and I was like right here, and I looked down and I saw, oh, there's an increase right here. I look ahead, and if I find another increase, then I'm not at the end of the round. If it continues on and it's all single crochets, then I am at the end of the round. Now that is specific for this pattern and most of my patterns. I usually put increase stitches in the same spots and it stops at a certain point. And that's because I like to count my stitches without actually counting my stitches. Sometimes though, that won't be the case. So this is not a catch-all for all the time. It's just a quick tip that I like to use. And just important is that counting, sorry. Something went weird. What's important is that you want to be able to use that to count your rounds at the end. So as we count here, we're at the end of our round here. I can count how many rounds I've done of this repeat here by counting those rounds of single crochet. So if I count back from where the end of the round here is, we have 1 single crochet here, we have 1 single crochet here, and then under that we have an increase. That means we've done 2 rounds that have only been single crochets. So we've only done 2 of our 4 rounds. We've only done, what, 36 stitches so far. So we need to go all the way up to 72. So we're going to keep doing that over and over all the way around. Does that explain things? I hope so. If you have any questions, if that was confusing as heck, well, sorry. Sorry. I'm doing my best. Let's keep counting, or let's keep crocheting on these 4 rounds of single crochets, 72 stitches total, and answer any questions that we might have. Hank says that they learned it as the noodle cup. Oh, I see. Is this being like a noodle cup, and with our tail end being the noodle. So we kind of changed that because we pulled it through the center, but that's an interesting way to do it. I like that. All right. Let's see if YouTube has any questions. All right. Crochet in bubble. Oh, never mind. I thought that was a question, but it's not. Takoyaki is in the chat on YouTube. Hello, Takoyaki. If anybody on YouTube wants to join the live Zoom, you can join it by going to campcrochet.com, by the way. As you can see, as I'm going now, I've been crocheting for so long that I don't really even need to look at my piece. I actually practiced this a lot when I was in high school, was crocheting with my eyes closed, because I'm crocheting based on feeling instead of seeing. So I'm instead of looking where my next stitch is, I just know that it's right there, and I can tell the feel and the difference. So just some stuff that you learn through experience as we go. All right, we're more than halfway done, by the way, on this tutorial. So we're coming near to the end here. We just need to add the face and then decrease our piece down. So if you are like, oh, when's the crochet along portion gonna happen? Don't worry, it'll come soon. Sorry this has taken me so long. But, you know, I just wanted to be very careful for our beginners out there, because I have a feeling people will be rewatching this afterwards, and I just don't want to leave any spaces where they get confused. All right, I'm on my last single crochet here of our 4 rounds, and as we look through our piece, we want to make sure we don't have any of increases in these last 4 rounds. So there should be no spots where there are 2 V's put together. So that's kind of the first thing I'm looking at. If you want to count your stitches, we're going to have 18 stitches around our stitch count here. And yeah, that's that. So that's our 4 rounds of single crochets. It should look something like this. It might look really loose. It might look really tight. Don't worry about that. Just as long as your stitch count is correct, just finish this piece up. You can always make another one of these. They're so quick. Once you know what you're doing, you can make one of these in 5 minutes. Easy. All right. Easy. All of us could do this in 5 minutes. Absolutely, right? All right, maybe it'll take you 30 minutes. Maybe it'll take you 4 hours. I don't know. Let's add our face now. Okay, this is the fun part. I love adding our face. It's my favorite part of pieces. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the eyes. Okay, so let's learn a few things here. The first thing we're going to learn is safety eyes. Now, here are 10 millimeter safety eyes. Should we use 10 millimeter? I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It's big old eyes. I like using somewhere between 6 and 10 millimeter usually. And we're going to learn, first we're going to learn how to use safety eyes here. Then we're going to learn how to embroider your eyes if you don't have safety eyes. So if you're coming into this right now and you're like, I don't have these things, don't worry. As long as you got black yarn, or really any yarn in any other color and a needle, I can teach you how to do this. Christina is still on round 7. Okay, well, while you're getting there, Christina, I will slow and talk to you about what these safety eyes are. All right, so these safety eyes come in 2 different parts. There's the top and there's the back. Well, I guess, yeah, the top and the back, I think, is probably the best way to say it. The top part here is going to have the eye section. That's going to be this round part, and then a locking mechanism in this back. That's going to be this long part with these little jagged edges. The back is going to be a little locking mechanism like this. Now, these sometimes, every now and then, you'll buy a packet of these eyes, and they'll come with these really tight little white sharp things, and they're the worst things in the world, and they suck, and they're the worst. Try to get safety eyes with these little gray ones. They're soft. They don't hurt your hands nearly as much. It makes your life a million gazillion times easier. The clasp is what Hank calls this, is the clasp, this little locking mechanism. This has a bit of a shape to it. It's got like a rounded top and kind of an indented bottom, kind of like a bowl with a little hole in the center of it. And what this is going to be used for is locking onto this. It's going to go into these little grooves as we push it in, and it'll keep it in place. There's 2 ways to put this onto the face. There's this way, like this, so that the bowl is kind of going into the eye, or there's backwards like this. Now, people say that if you do it this way, your eye can fall out. I have never, ever, in my time crocheting, seen an eye fall out like that unless this thing is broken and has like a really big hole or something. It's never done it for me. But if you want to be extra safe, put them inside out like this so that the bowl is downwards. It's just really hard. It's hard to push this down into your piece. It's much easier to connect it like this, and I personally have never found a problem with it. If you're really worried, let's say you have an infant and you're worried that this is going to fall off and your kid's gonna swallow it and that won't be good, don't use safety eyes at all. If that's the case, you shouldn't be using these. If you're really worried about safety eyes and your dog eating it or whatever, don't use safety eyes. We'll be using, oh my goodness, my dad is calling me right now. Worst time ever, Dad. Oh man, I just totally goofed, didn't I? Oh my gosh. 1 second, guys. Everybody can blame Papa Loops for this. Pause. Okay. Is it back? It's not. Okay. Why not? Father, why have you forsaken me? There we go. All right. I fixed it. And if he calls back again, we will disown him. No. Love you, Dad. All right, so we are... How dare you, Papa Loop, says the chat. I agree. Okay, so yeah, if you are worried about these safety eyes and you have a kid or something, don't use safety eyes. Use our embroidery method that I'm going to teach you in a second. Let's go ahead and put these eyes in. I'm going to be putting these eyes into round 5. How do you find round 5? Start from the top here. That's going to be 0, round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5 is going to be right here. Do you have to put them in round 5? No, you can put them wherever you want. Maybe you want a cyclops one. You want it right at the top of the head. That's what's great about adding a face. You can do whatever you want here. I'm going to be, however, trying to make this as classic as possible. And we're going to try to make this tail end in the very back. So if I fold it in half like that, and I have this tail end in the where our end of our round is in the very back of our piece, where would the front be? It looks like about right here is pretty good. So we're just going to place this eye into that. 2 rounds up. 1, 2 is going to be round 5. Just going to place it right there. And then I'm going to lock it into place. We're going to take this little locking mechanism, have the back of it facing you. You should have that little dot in the back. You can fold it inside out. Don't worry about hurting your piece. It's not going to hurt it. And we're just going to place this back locking mechanism on there. Again, you can do it that way, or we can do it this way. And we can just hold the 2 ends right here with your thumb. This is what's important. Grab the 2 ends like that. Make sure it's one of these light gray ones. If it's white, if your locking mechanism here is white and it's hard plastic, this is going to hurt like heck. So don't do that. If it's soft like this, you can lock it in there and push it in. And it'll make that little satisfying snap like that. And that's locked into place. If you fold it the other way around and lock it in, you can do it that way too. It might be really hard to push that in. So this is the way I like to do it, is inverted like that. Okay, so that's how to add safety eyes and use safety eyes. I do have a video tutorial where I talk more about safety eyes and different ways to do it, but let me show you now how to embroider safety eyes instead. My dad has called me 3 times now. Now I'm starting to get worried, but in our intermission, I'll call him back. Okay, let's go ahead and embroider on some eyes as well. This is going to be, if you don't want to use safety eyes, you can use black yarn to embroider on eyes instead. You want a somewhat long end, about that long looks pretty good. And we're going to cut it. You don't need very long. Cut it like that. And what we're going to do here is we're going to create something called a French knot. It's also called a bullion knot. Thread your black yarn onto your needle. I like using yarn that's about the same thickness as my piece, but you can use really any kind of yarn, as long as it's like not super thin, and like embroidery thread would make really tiny eyes. It probably wouldn't work very well. But this is my favorite way to do it. So first we want to find our spot. I'm going to go about 4 stitches away from this other eye. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, yeah, we'll go like right here. So I'm going to come out from the inside from 1 stitch like that. Pull it out. And leave just the tail end, just enough for double knotting it on the inside. Now, we want this part facing upwards, like that. There we go. And we're going to take our needle, and we're going to wrap it around this end coming out of the eye spot 3 times. 1, 2, 3, like that. See, so 3 ends like that. We want to keep this end pointing upwards. And then we want to go into the next stitch over. So 1 stitch over will be right there. And pull it almost all the way through. You don't want to pull this needle all the way through, just like that far. And then we're going to take this tail end here and pull this tighter, and you'll see that'll kind of tighten up those 3 loops. And then we want to pull this end, pull that tighter, that'll really tighten up those 3 loops. Now we want to grab that knot, just pinch the knot right there, and pull our needle through the knot like that. Pull it through like that. And that's going to create this little knotted eye. And then you'll have 2 ends here, and we can double knot those on the inside. But if you want that, if that eye is looking a little like like wobbly there. See how it's kind of like open and like the stitches are a little weird? You can tighten this up by pulling it out of the eye and pulling these two ends, and it'll tighten that up. And usually I like to kind of like ball it up into like a little ball like that, and then pull these two ends tight like that. There we go. And then all we need to do is double knot this on the inside. This is how I used to make eyes for the longest time before I started using safety eyes. And we'll just double knot this on the inside. Like that. And that's going to be how to embroider on eyes using a bullion knot or rose knot. Not my preferred method, but it definitely is nice in a oh my gosh, Dad. Okay. We're going to deal with that in just a second. All right. I'm going to cut this out, though, really quick. And we're just going to add a safety eye as normal. Like that. And we're going to be using this black yarn in a second for the mouth, though. I'll call him back in the intermission. I'm sure he's probably just wants to do dinner tonight because my mom is playing bunco. That's what my dad ends up calling for all the time. All right. Our safety eye is going to go 4 stitches away from the other safety eye. That's the best position I want these eyes to be in for our little piece here. So we want 4 stitches away. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be right here. That is a good distance from each other, I think. Right? I think that looks pretty good. And then we'll just lock that in. And we'll have our eyes attached. Like that. Okay, so that's going to be how to add eyes. Now let's learn how to make... Oopsies. Let's learn how to make a mouth. There's a bunch of different ways to make a mouth. I have tutorials galore that goes through a bunch of different methods. I'm going to teach you today, though, how to do the simple smile. This is going to be the easiest way to do the mouth. Oh, yes, great. Thank you, Michelle. Can I go over counting between eyes? Oh, my gosh. One moment, you guys. I'm so sorry. I need to take this. I'll be right back. Okay, Jules is on it. Jules is saving our butt. Okay, thank you. So sorry about that. All right. Let's count your stitches between eyes. How do you count your stitches? Where this eye is coming out of, there's going to be a stitch right next to it, right here. These are going to be in between stitches. We want to count our way over. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 was where this eye is. If I count back this way instead, so let's say I wanted the eye over here instead. 1 would be in between these 2 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be right there. So that's how to count between your eyes. I like having 4 stitches between eyes when it's this small because it makes the perfect space for our mouth. All right, now let's move on to the mouth. Okay, so we're going to come out from the center of the stitch right next to the eye. So right here, we're going to come right through the inside like that. Pull it out. It's going to be step 1 of making the mouth. Wow, impressive. Now we're going to go over 2 stitches and go into the body, and we're going to create a straight line. So 1 and 2 will be right here into the body, and we're going to pull it down. It's going to make this nice straight line. Honestly, that is already kind of adorable. Well, you kind of just could call it there, but I want to turn this into a smile instead. So what we're going to do for that, sorry, my yarn got undone on the needle. We want this tail end just long enough so we can double knot it. To turn this into a smile, we need to come up from the inside of one of these stitches. So if you look really closely, I'm trying to find a different needle, but whatever, we'll use this one. There are 2 spaces to come out of. You can come out of right in between the stitches, which is where we put our eyes and where we started with that mouth, or you can actually come out from the actual center of a stitch. So what we want to do with this end is we want to come out right in between where this mouth is, the perfect center. That's going to be in the center of this stitch, actually. So what we're going to do with our crochet or needle here, from the bottom, we're going to wiggle our way in till we're right in between that V, like that. I mean, it's upside down V, but you get what I mean. Up like that, pull it through. Now, we want to go around that black bar. So we're going to go over the top of it and into the center where that black line is coming out. So right there, right into the center. Back down. And we're going to pull that in, and it's going to create a little V in our yarn. See, it kind of already did the smile perfect, to be honest. But you can kind of pull it tighter if you want to, and it'll really turn it into a V. Sometimes that'll like really like, it'll be perfect V, but that actually kind of already smoothed its way out to be a perfect smile, so we're just going to kind of be happy with that. Now what we're going to do is double knot this on the inside. There's one. And then double knot this part. There's two. Okay. We can cut this knot nice and close. You do not need these long ends. We can use these for stuffing later on if you want to. But that's going to be how to add a very simple smile. If you want it to smooth out, just kind of like push it over like that and it'll make it more rounded, which kind of makes it into even more rounded smile. There's a bunch of different ways to make mouths though. You can do chubby faces, you can do little like cat mouth, you could do a sly smile. I've got tutorials for all of those on the website. You can find those all at clubcrochet.com/smile. I think. I might be wrong about that. Okay. Let's continue. Now we're back to crocheting. We're in our last phase of our pattern here. We only have 2 more rounds left to go. Let's pull our stitch marker up and learn about decreasing. We learned about increasing. Now let's learn about decreasing. For round 8, we've pulled our stitch marker over. Don't forget about doing that. For round 8, we want to decrease it down. So every time we decrease, it's going to be the opposite of an increase. It's going to pull our stitches closer together, start closing the end in, and it's going to start removing stitches from it. So every time we increased, we added 1 stitch upon it. Every time we decreased, we're going to remove 1 stitch upon it. So for this round, we're going to be doing what's in the brackets 6 times. That's going to be 1 single crochet and the 1 invisible decrease. That's the specific decrease I'm going to be teaching you today. There's a bunch of different ways to decrease, but my favorite way is this, the invisible decrease. It's just my favorite way by far. It's really hidden and hard to see. I'll teach you a few different ways to decrease today, but that's just going to be my favorite. We're going to then do this repeat of 1 single crochet, 1 invisible decrease 6 times. Because we do that 6 times, it's going to remove 6 stitches, because every time we do a decrease, it's removing a stitch, right? So single crochet 1, invisible decrease 6 times will bring us down from 18 stitches to 12 stitches. So we'll only have 12 stitches by the end of this round. All right, well, let's go ahead and get that repeat started and teach you how to do a decrease. We're going to start by dodging our little stitch marker here and going into our first stitch and doing a single crochet. So that part's easy enough. 1 single crochet. All right, now let's invisible decrease. Again, there's a bunch of different ways. I'll show you the opposite way, a different way after this one. But for an invisible decrease, the first thing you want to know is what the difference between the front and back loops of your crochet are. We talked about that a little bit earlier on, but if you look closely, we've been working under both loops like this throughout our entire piece. For an invisible decrease, we only want to work under the front loop, so only the loop closest to you right here. We want to work under this front loop and this second front loop simultaneously. That sounds harder than it is. What we want to do is we're going to take our crochet hook, go under the first front loop. We're going to pull our crochet hook around to get under the second front loop and poke through like that. Our crochet hook will look something like this. We're going to do it in a second. And then we want to do a single crochet. That's it. We get into those 2 front loops and we do a single crochet. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. The easiest way I found to do this with my crochet hook is poking up from the very bottom. So get my crochet hook into position right under it. So I'm poking straight up. Instead of poking down like that, I'm poking straight up to get only under that first front loop. Poke it up like that. See, so now I'm only under one of those 2 loops. Now we take our crochet hook, we loop it around slightly to get into position under the second front loop there and push that one up like that. Now we're under 2 front loops at the same time. 1, 2, and we have our loop coming out of the ender part right there. What we want to do now is just do a single crochet. To do a single crochet, we yarn over, Twist and scoop is extra important for an invisible decrease. So we twist it, really twist it, and we scoop it. Boom. To finish up your invisible decrease, we want to yarn over and pull through these 2 loops to finish it up. 1 and 2. The fly is back. Dang nabbit fly. All right. That's an invisible decrease. We're going to do that again throughout this entire piece, so don't worry too much if that was a little confusing. Let's do it again in a second. But first, I'm going to teach you a different decrease. We've done our repeat here. 1 single crochet, 1 invisible decrease. We want to do that 6 times. Where do I put the next single crochet, though? That can be kind of hard to see with an invisible decrease because it pulls your stitches in a weird way to make it invisible. If you look at the top, that's going to be the easiest way to find where your next stitch is. It's going to be right here, this next V. See, this one, it's not really a V. This piece is getting pulled out really weird. You can kind of see it when you look at the top there. You could technically get under that, but this is where the invisible decrease was. The next stitch is actually right next to it, right there. Fly. We want to work our crochet hook into that next stitch right here and do a single crochet. Take our crochet hook into the next stitch right there and do 1. Sorry, this fly is driving me bonkers banana. All right, single crochet, invisible decrease. We finished that invisible decrease. We move over to the next stitch right here, and we're just going to do 1 single crochet. We go into the stitch, we yarn over, pull it under the stitch, and do our single crochet. Okay, now we want to do another invisible decrease or a decrease in general. Why don't I show you, instead of the invisible decrease, how to do the single crochet 2 together. This is an alternative version of a decrease. It's actually what most people use for decreasing, kind of, but it's really easy to notice in your crochet, especially for amigurumi. It's basically it's called the single crochet 2 together because it's basically that. You're putting 2 single crochets together. To do it, we're going to start it just like any single crochet. You go into the next stitch here, yarn over, and pull it through. Then, to finish the single crochet 2 together, you go into the next stitch, so right here, and you pull another loop through. Now you're going to have 3 loops on the hook, and they're coming out of different stitches, right? 1, 2, and 3. To finish the single crochet 2 together, we yarn over, and we pull through all 3 of those loops. 1, 2, and 3. And you'll see that'll decrease us down, but it'll also leave this kind of, see how it's like a little bit bigger than the rest of the stitches? That's going to be noticeable. You're going to see that. Whereas the invisible decrease, you kind of can't even see it at all. It's like right here, right to the name. Yes, exactly, Hink. It looks more bulky. It's easier, but it looks more bulky. So we're going to use invisible decreases instead. So I'm going to take that out. We just did our single crochet of our second repeat. Now let's do an invisible decrease again. Front loop only, up, front loop only, up, and then a single crochet. Yarn over, under both, and pull through. Going over, yarn over, and pull through 2. 1 and 2. All right. We're just going to keep doing that repeat all the way around. Let's keep going. We skip this little part right here. We do a single crochet into this next one. And then an invisible decrease. Again, we're repeating this 6 times total. Our stitch count is going to end up being 12 stitches total by the end of this round. 1 single crochet in the next. Invisible decrease in the next. So if you want to count your stitches, every even stitch should be an invisible decrease. And every single crochet should be an odd stitch. Front loop and front loop. And then our single crochet. You can see it gets a lot easier as you go to do those invisible decreases. Front loop and front loop. And then we single crochet by doing that twist and a scoop like that. All right. Should have only 12 stitches there. If you want to count your stitches around, count out from where this loop is coming out. 1, 2, 3. Oops, let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That's going to be the end of round 8 and our 12 stitches around. You can see we are almost done. We'll pull our stitch marker up here. And before we continue to our last round, let's stuff it just a little bit. I like to say this is stuff mostly now. You don't need to stuff it a lot, but a little bit of stuffing is easier to do now than it is later. So we're going to go into our little stash here, grab a little bit of stuffing. If you don't have stuffing like this, you can use extra threads of yarn that you might have. That's a great way to stuff it with. Or you can get pillows, you can get tissue paper, you can use beads or beans. Anything can work as stuffing. I sometimes don't tell my wife, go into old pillows and use that stuffing if I'm like really short on stuffing. But usually I've got stuffing, you know. Fly. Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm just going to stuff it a little bit. This is like not even close to as much stuffing. Well, it's about half. I would say it's about half the amount of stuffing that we're going to need. And we're just going to really stuff it in there. Keep it out of our way a little bit. And then we can continue on to our next round, which is round 9. It is our final round today for our tutorial workshop part. You saw someone, Cooper said they saw someone online using couch stuffing. Says it on the internet. She ain't gonna watch this. All right, so for our last round, we want to invisible decrease in each stitch around. You can do a single crochet 2 together. You could do a sharp decrease. I didn't teach you that one, but it's basically single crochet 2 together, but even sharper, and it pulls it really tight. If you want to learn about that, check out the decreasing tutorial at clubcrochet.com/decrease. I don't know why this fly is so obsessed with me. I must be cute today. Cute to a fly. That could be a t-shirt. Anyhow, we're gonna do an invisible decrease in each stitch around here, and in this last round, it's kind of hard to get into the stitches because it's getting smaller and smaller and your finger can't get into the stitch. So what I like to do in these last rounds is pinch it tight like this, and it'll help me see those stitches a little bit easier. We want to do an invisible decrease all the way around 6 times total. So 1 invisible decrease for every 2 stitches. Let's go ahead and do our first one. After our stitch marker here, it's going to be right there. And see, I'm pinching it to kind of get it easier to see. We're going to go into that first front loop. Loop our crochet hook around into the second front loop. Push our way in there. There we go. Now we're going to do a single crochet. Yarn over, twist it, scoop it, yarn over, pull through 2. 1 invisible decrease, done. 6 of those. Pinch it tight. Find our next stitch. It's going to be right there. Right here. Front loop. Oops. Yeah. See, it can be kind of hard. Front loop is like that. There we go. Next front loop. Like that. And then yarn over, twist and scoop, yarn over, pull through 2. We've got 2 out of 6 finished. Only a few more to go. Okay. Next stitch right here. Invisible decrease. Sorry, I wanted to say single crochet, but it's not that. Front loop. Front loop right under the face. Single crochet, twist and scoop, yarn over, pull through 2. Last couple, pinch it, front loop only, yarn over, twist and scoop, twist and scoop. All right, 2 more. Last couple are really hard to get into because it's really tight now. So you kind of like pinch it to really make sure we can find those. And you might need your nail actually. If you use your nail of your dominant hand, you can kind of help guide the hook into that front loop like that. Right here, kind of guide it in like that. And there's our invisible decrease. Last one will be right here. Front loop only, and front loop only. And twist and a scoop. Yarn over and pull through 2. It's gonna be our very last stitch. You can see how tiny the hole is now. You've really closed it in. All right. Anybody have any questions about that round 9? Speak now or forever hold your project. Okay. I'll check YouTube really quick too before we finish this up. Celia says they always use their nail when they're doing invisible decreasing or crocheting in general. Yeah, your nails can be pretty helpful for helping your stitches out. All right. let's move on to our final part for today, which is going to be stuffing and sewing it closed. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this yarn. You don't need it very long. That's probably fine. Maybe like half of a foot. You can go longer if you want to, but you really don't need it very long. We're going to cut it. And we're just going to take our crochet hook with that loop on it and just pull it all the way through like that. That's going to create a little knot so that it can't come undone. Next, before we stuff it and sew it closed, we want to get rid of the stitch marker. Easiest way to get rid of the stitch marker, grab it at the base right here and pull it with the line. If you're having a hard time, if you're pulling it and it's not coming through, and sometimes you really need to use a lot of pressure, but if that's having difficulty, what you can do is go up to the top one first, just grab it with a needle, or your crochet hook will work too, and just pull them out one by one will also work, like that. But honestly, it's easier to just grab it from the base here, just pull it all the way through. It might leave spaces in between your stitches. You kind of see it left a little bit of spaces. If that's the case, just squish your piece like that. It'll fix it up. There you go. Now I don't even know where those ends of those rounds are anymore. All right, next up is stuffing. We're gonna need a very, very important tool here. You can use the back of your crochet hook for this, but if you are a pro like me, go to your store and buy this fancy tool. It's called a pencil. And the pencil has this fancy little eraser end here, and this is going to be pro tip for stuffing it. It's so useful for stuffing. What we want to use is we want to take our stuffing. We want just a little bit of stuffing at a time. We'll place it, pull this tail end out of the way, place that stuffing right over the hole, take your pencil and scoop it. You want to kind of pinch it to the end here, scoop it, and then push into the hole. Like that. And we just want to keep doing that. Twist, push, twist, push. Just scoop that stuffing into there. Now, how much stuffing do you want is going to be dependent on really preference, but my rule of thumb is I want there to be enough stuffing so that when I squish my piece, it doesn't hold its shape like that. See, like I squish it and it's like still like squished in. So I want it to hold its shape, but I don't want so much stuffing that you can see the stuffing through your stitches. So there's like a fine line between too much and too little stuffing. See, so that's still, I would say that's still a little loose on the stuffing, unless I want a little squishy guy. But let's go ahead and we'll just add a little bit more stuffing. Also, stuffing is different. Sometimes stuffing is more dense. I'm actually using really dense stuffing right now, because it's what I had in my stash. But sometimes I have like really loose, soft stuffing, and it makes it mean that I need more stuffing. If you stuff it too much, you'll start to see your stuffing through your stitches. But that's probably good. Yeah. All right. Last part for today, for today's lesson, is going to be sewing it closed. There's actually a few different ways you can sew closed. There's two ways in specific that I like to use, and that's going to be doing this. We're going to thread this onto our needle, like that. Perfect. And to sew it closed, we want to go into the front loops only of all the stitches around. This is my favorite way to sew it closed. If you want to sew it closed, oh, look at that fly. He is testing me. All right. We want to go take our needle, go under this front loop only of the next stitch right here with it attached to the yarn, and just pull it all the way through. And we just want to do that for all the front loops around. So there's one. I like to pull it off to the side with my non-dominant hand and hold it off to the side so I have easier reach with my darning needle. There's our next front loop right there. 2 off to the side. Should be 6 of these. There's 3. There's 4. You don't need to pull it too tight, by the way. We'll pull it tight at the end. Here's our 5th one. And then one more will be right here. It'll be our 6th one. Just like that. All right. Now what we want to do is we want to grab it very close to the end, right, like this, and just pull it, and that's going to close that hole up. Okay? Pull it really tight. It's going to close that hole nice up. All right. Now what we want to do is take our needle, go straight back down into the center, and then off somewhere on the side. It really doesn't matter where. We'll go like that, off to the side somewhere, and just pull that through. We can pull it tight enough so that this gets pulled on the inside a little bit more. It creates more of a soft bottom, like a smooth bottom. And then we'll take our scissors, cut it nice and close, just like that, and then squish it so that gets hidden on the inside. And bop, we have got our finished little doodad. I don't know what to name him. A goober. Look at our little goober. Isn't that cute? So cute. Okay, so we have completed our workshop. Now, before we continue on to our, well, we'll have a little intermission and then a crochet along. But before we get to that Q&A section, does anybody have any questions at all? It can be about this specific tutorial. It can be about a question for me about my crocheting history. If you want to show off your crochet and get a little tips and tricks, let me know. This is your opportunity. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to actually ask the question live. If you don't want to ask it live and just want to ask in the chat, that is totally okay as well. Just let me know and we'll wait to see if we've got any Q&As. If not, that's totally okay. In the meantime, I'll check YouTube, see if anybody has any questions there on YouTube. We got Kat, Hope, and Hooked by Blair. Hello. Celia, hello, everybody. Is that a ball? Yes, we got just this little tiny ball guy, little goober guy. All right, any questions on the Zoom? Looks like no. Oh, we got Christina has a question. All right, Christina. Hold on, let me just go ahead and ask you to unmute. Spotlight you. You're gonna be on the stream, by the way, so just heads up there. Here we go.
So my question is, like, I've seen people that will like yarn over and yarn under to make different shapes of the stitches.
Yeah.
And I want to know, like, if you have, I mean, obviously you prefer to yarn over, but
what the difference is?
Well, is there like a situation in when like yarning under would be okay in your
Yeah.
projects? Or...
Good question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. I mean, the first answer is yes, absolutely. There's certain I don't know what just happened there. I don't know why that happened. I think I'm on the wrong thingamabob. Wait, sorry. 1 second. I think my thing broke. Ah! Okay, 1 moment, please. I broke everything here. My computer went. There we go. Did it fix? I don't know.
It says starting soon.
Okay. Yes, that's my bad. I'm gonna remute you, Christina, so I can answer your question, and we're gonna get back to our screen. Is gonna go, and it's gonna get fixed, right? Is it gonna get fixed? Maybe we're gonna exit this and come back in. 1 second, guys. Don't worry too much. It's just gonna take a second. All right. Sorry about that. I think my computer just had too much going on. But to answer your question, yes. The answer is absolutely yes. There are certain parts where you might want to use certain techniques over other ones. 1 moment. It's getting really confused. Okay. I personally don't like using the yarn under method. And the reason I don't like using the yarn under method is because, I mean, the truth of the answer is because I don't use it. So I don't like to use it. Does that make sense? Like, I've been using the yarn over technique for so long now that the yarn under technique just feels like, it just doesn't feel right to me. It feels weird. There we go. We're back to it. Okay, so what does the yarn under versus yarn over look like, though? Let me go ahead and get one started here, and I'll show you. I unfortunately don't have one at hand to like really, show you how it's done. But let me go ahead. I'll just get one started a little bit, and you'll kind of see the difference. But what the main difference of a yarn under and yarn over is it's going to create these little X's on the front. And then the other big difference is it's going to make your stitches much tighter and much like thicker. So it makes your stitches thicker, which ends up also making your pieces smaller. So what are the use cases for that? Well, if you want your piece to be smaller in general, that's one thing. There's also use cases of wanting to have your crochet, like the color changes work a little bit different if you're using the yarn under technique rather than the yarn over. And here I've got it started here. Let me get a few more stitches in. Let's see if I can't get to like round 3 or 4 here with the yarn under. Again, I don't use this technique very often. It's not like it's that difficult, it's just awkward to me now. There we go. Okay, so what you're basically doing here is you're going into the stitch, and instead of yarning over our stitch like that, we're yarning under. So we're going over with our crochet hook and pulling it under the stitch and pulling it like that. You don't really want to use this technique if you're using stitches other than the single crochet. So if you're making half double crochets, or if you're making bobble stitches, you probably want to yarn over, which is another reason why I usually don't yarn under, because I'm often switching my stitches up in my pieces, so I don't really want to have like alternative ways to crochet those pieces. Here we go. So we're coming along now. Let's look at the top here. It's kind of hard to see, honestly, because you can tell more when we get like further and further along, but I can feel it is tighter. You can see the stitches look slightly different. It's kind of hard to see, especially as a beginner, but basically you're making little X's. It looks more like little X's instead of little V's. So it'll make like a series of these little X's throughout your piece, which pulls it really tight, makes it really small. Color changes with this method are a little bit nicer. They look a little bit cleaner. They're a little bit more up and down clean too. But personally, I haven't found that to be worth the effort of changing my entire way that I crochet. A lot of people like this technique more though. They really like the look of it more. I will say it looks a little bit better when you're making it with like chenille or like thick yarn. You might want to use the yarn under method more. But it's a little bit more difficult. It puts more tension on your yarn. If you're using really fragile yarn, you might have the opportunity to break your yarn more if you're using the yarn under method. But it does look maybe a little bit more organized, maybe a little bit more clean. But really, to answer your question, it's more so is a matter of preference. Okay. I hope that answered your question, Christina. If it didn't answer your question, well, I'm sorry about that, but I'll do my best next time. Anybody else have any other questions today? Nope. All right. I guess that's our Q&A for today, unless anybody's got... Oh, we do have a few questions. There's a few in the chat. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. Michelle said that they did theirs with a yarn under technique if you'd like to share. Michelle, if you would like to share, I would love to see it. There we go. Hold on. Let me feature you really quick. And let's hope that I can share you on the screen and won't break you. Let's see. Oh, it did break. Hold on. Hold tight. It's because I had to reset everything. Zoom meeting. There we go. There we go. Okay, so there you can see Michelle's yarn under technique. It's kind of hard to see the difference, really, unless you are an experienced crocheter. But you have little tiny X's a little bit more than that yarn under technique. Here, Michelle, if you'd like to talk, you totally can. I think I can unmute you. Oh, maybe I can't. Sorry, 1 second, Michelle. I can't figure out how to unmute you. Other moderators, if you're able to unmute Michelle, please do, because I can't figure it out. I think it might be on you, Michelle, to unmute yourself now. There we go.
There we go. Okay,
Yeah.
When you put me on the big screen, it doesn't show as easy.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when I
I can see it though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, are you more often using the yarn under technique than the yarn over technique, Michelle?
I do the yarn under, yarn over, like the first part is yarn under,
Yeah.
and then I yarn over for the amigurumi. The reason I do it is because of the tension, like you mentioned before. I can keep it so that it's tight,
Yeah.
and I don't have the gaps showing.
Yeah.
In the when I use a certain hook, I have to really experiment with hooks
Mm-hmm.
because the ones I use for like blankets and stuff like that, those hooks don't work for me. So, and I do those as the yarn over. So because of that, I know when I'm doing the amigurumi stuff, I'm picking it up and consciously changing my brain. I don't switch back and forth. If I switch back and forth between projects, I have a bit of a problem.
Okay.
But Christina, what it looks like, can you see?
Yeah, I think we can see. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, I do not suggest. I'm gonna remove your spotlight here real quick. I do not suggest using the yarn under technique if you. We did the thing again. Here we go. We'll fix that up. If you are using the yarn under technique and you're switching back and forth, I do not suggest doing that. Stick to one of the two. If you switch it up, it'll look weird. It'll look wonky. It'll look weird. Like Michelle said too, there's actually is an additional section here. You can do yarn under and yarn under again. You can either do yarn under, yarn over, yarn under, blah, 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 blah. Let me show you the difference here. So when we go into our crochet here, doing the yarn under technique to start it, pulling it under, and then you can also do the yarn under technique again and pull it under those two like that. So that's using the yarn under technique twice. Or you can do yarn under and then yarn over for the second half. And you can kind of see the little X there? It's starting to create a little X throughout our piece too. Go into the stitch, yarn under, and then we can yarn under again. But again, this is mostly comes down to preference. Someone on YouTube, we have a couple of questions asked. Amber asks, do I have any tips on pattern designing? I do have tips on pattern designing. We're not going to go into that too in depth today, but in future Camp Crochets, we will go. I absolutely will talk more about how to design your amigurumi. I got a gazillion bazillion techniques and tips when it comes to designing at this point. But I won't be going into those details that much today, just because we've been going a lot about how to crochet for beginners, and I think that might be a better technique later. I can also talk to you a bit more about it in our crochet along section, which is going to be our next section after intermission. Mike Duffy says, "Holy cow, it's been a minute. Been a supporter and player of Stitched. Oh, Stitched for over 8 years. I love that. Oh, that's so cool. So Stitched is a game that I created. That's not really too much of a question, but that is really cool to hear. Mike, thank you so much for joining and saying hi. That means a lot. I love Stitched. I'll tell you more about Stitched later on as well. Will I ever do seminar on how to design things, asks Hank. Yes, absolutely. Our next tutorial is going to be... we're going to get to our crochet along in just a second. Let me get to... Here's our... Did I do it right? Okay, I didn't do it right. That's okay. I don't know how I didn't do it right, though. Did the screen change? No? Oh, it's because the slide capture broke. Got it. Okay. All right, so I think that's it for our questions today. If anybody has any other questions throughout this, no worries. I will be happy to help in our crochet along portion of today's stream. And feel free to ask during that. But I think that is it for our first half of, well, a little bit further than our first half of our techniques today. We've made our cute little amigurumi doodad. And now, let's have a short intermission. We will be back in about 10-ish minutes. I would say if you're watching live right now, it is currently 5:08. So we're going to be back on at 5:18. So give me about 10 minutes just to get, bio breaks, get a snack, hang out for just a second. In that intermission, we're going to be voting on what we're going to be crocheting along to. So if you want to crochet along with me, today, we're going to be making one of those 3 patterns. We're going to be voting now in the chat. You can vote between a whale, a pet rock, or a classic heart. That's going to be those 3 things there. Whale, pet rock, classic heart. Let's go ahead and get that vote going. There's not that many people in the chat right now, or in our Zoom, so your vote is really going to matter. I'm personally not going to say what I'm going to vote for, but I voted. Okay, the poll is going right now, and we'll be back in just a bit. If you're watching live on YouTube, we'll be back in just a second as well. I'm going to mute myself, and I'm going to take a breather. I will be back in just a moment. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining, by the way. See you in a sec. Okay, team. Let's get back into this. And before we actually get going into our crochet along for today, I want to show you how we can add our projects today. We'll have another opportunity for show and tell, but I also want to show you how we can add this onto the website if you want to actually add your picture onto the site. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody see me? I think you can. Yes, yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead first. Today's crochet along, we're going to be making a heart. We're going to be making some little hearts, which is going to be cute and fun. Those are actually pretty fun and quick to make, which is great. Okay. But before that, let me show you something before we get actually going and crocheting our heart. I want to show you how you can actually add this to the website. So if you're on your phone here and we are logged in on our phone, you don't have to use your phone, by the way. You can use any you can use your computer as well. But I just want to show you how we can add our new pattern or our finished crochet onto the website as a community submission, because this is a kind of a cool little technique, new thing that we have on our site. So the first thing is we need to find this lesson. Now, unfortunately, I thought the lesson was going to be at the top here, but it's not. If we want to go find this lesson, we'll go to all patterns to start. You could search, of course, if we wanted to, we could search for Camp Crochet. That would totally work. But I'm going to instead just find it because I know it's at the top of our browse section right there. We want to find our Camp Crochet one. We can go, jump down, start pattern, all that stuff. There's two ways we can add pictures. One, we can go to the picture section at the top here and add one in there, but even easier, because there's no actual pictures for this right now, is going to be scroll all the way down to the bottom till it says community posts here. That's where we want to submit our photo, and we can create our photo. I'm going to go ahead and say this one is by @Louie's Loops, and our project name is Goober with extra O's, because why not? I'm okay with us using our picture publicly. We're going to take our photo though, and let's get a good picture of our little guy. That's probably good. Just like that, we want it as centered as possible for a picture, because it will crop it into a square. We'll use that picture and then upload it. And bop-ba-da-bop. Our community submission has gone through. Now what we're going to be able to do is review that as moderators. So our moderators will be able to go in and review that post, and then actually you'll be able to see it on the page. So I'm going to go through right now and just approve my own post so you can see what it looks like. And then we're going to open the new pattern. Oh, it's already been approved. Cooper is way ahead of schedule here. Okay, so it's already been approved. So now what should happen is if I refresh this page, there's my little goober. Look at it. We did it. So now that's going to be how to add your picture onto the website if you'd like to during today. And then we'll show off all of our community submissions later on. We'll also be doing that for our heart that we're about to be making as well. Actually, before I continue that, let me go ahead and pull up the heart pattern. It should be at the bottom of this lesson. So we're just going to choose the classic heart. And we're going to get crocheting here. We're going to jump right into the start of the pattern. And I'm going to do my best to teach you kind of how this pattern is done. If you need help, I'll also be doing this. I'll also be answering any questions that you might have during this crochet along. And yeah, so we're going to be... Oh, by the way, if you are crocheting along on the website, we got this cool thing where you can actually use check marks to keep track of your progress. It's pretty neat. I like it a lot. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to crochet a little heart. It's really not too crazy to do. We'll go ahead and put our little goober guy out the back there. Can you hear us on YouTube? What round did we put our eyes in for the circle creature? It was in round 5 is where we put our eyes. They were 4 stitches apart. I tried to make it so that the back of our, the ends of our round was in the back of our crochet, by the way. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. We're making our little heart now. I'm going to open this pattern up, and I'm just going to have it on the side right here so I can look at it as we go, even though I'm pretty sure I remember what we need to do. For our yarn today, we've already used pink, so maybe we shouldn't use pink again. Maybe we'll do, I mean, if we want a classic heart, maybe we just want to use red. You don't really need too much yarn for this project. I think this might be enough. I'm not sure though. This is something that we'll end up finding out later as we go. Luckily I've got 2 ends here so we can use both of them if we do run low on yarn. Okay, so we're pulling up the heart pattern and we're going to be adding faces and stuff to this too, so don't worry, we're going to customize it. And let's get crocheting. So the first part of this heart is going to be basically the exact same as our little ball creature. It's going to be the first 2 rounds are the exact same. So we're going to do 6 single crochets in a magic loop and then increase up to 12, exactly how we did it before. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do that really quick. There is a full video tutorial for our crochet along today. In fact, there's full video tutorials for literally every pattern on the website, so I do a lot of video tutorials. And we're going to focus. Thank you, Mr. Camera. Okay. Someone asked if we speak Spanish in the YouTube chat. Unfortunately, I do not. No hablo español. 1, 2, 3. Our first one's just going to be 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll go ahead and use this little... I usually am not going to use a stitch marker here, but I'll make an exception for you. For you. Okay. Pull that tight. All right. We're going to move on now, round 2. How has everybody's week been, by the way? How has this Camp Crochet been? You know, like, I feel I'm really excited about future Camp Crochets. I mean, this one was fun. The, you know, beginner stuff. And I feel like I'm very good at teaching beginner tutorials like that. But I'm really excited for future ones. Our next Camp Crochet is going to be October 22nd, for those wondering. And we're going to be going into more advanced techniques. We're going to be learning how to crochet bobble stitches, in depth about how to crochet bobble stitches. So we're going to learn about the different types of bobble stitches, the difference between bobble stitches and other stitches like popcorn stitches. We're also going to learn specialty bobble stitches like the spiked bobble, which is actually a stitch that I invented. And then we'll also learn how to use bobble stitches differently, how to do color changes in them, how to use them for eyes. We're going to be learning a lot in our next Camp Crochet on October 22nd. We might possibly be splitting up the crochet along portion and the tutorial so that they're not so long. Like this was a pretty long one, you know? So that might be changed. And we might do the tutorial on a day before the actual crochet along. That way more people can have the opportunity to join if they want to. Oh, Christina, thank you so much for joining. Tell your mom we say happy birthday. So I'm on round 3, by the way, of our classic heart, where we're just crocheting around all the way for a round of just single crochets. It's just 12 single crochets all the way around. And by the way, anybody that was wondering what my dad was calling us over and over about, he just wanted to do dinner. That was it. He just wanted dinner. That was literally it. Classic dad. Okay. All right, so that's going to be the end of this part. I think, do I want to slip stitch? No, we don't need a slip stitch. Okay, so to finish up this first part here, we actually just cut the yarn. After that round of single crochets, there was 12 single crochets, and I just pull it all the way through, like that. There we go. And then I pull our stitch marker out like this, and we have half of our heart. I'll pull this a little tighter, try to close that hole up in the very center. I might have messed us up a little bit. That's okay. All right. So that's going to be the first part of our heart. We want to make a little tiny, see, this is going to be like half of the top of the heart. We're going to do another one of these now. Exact same way. So just like how we did that one, but we're not going to cut it this time. Yeah, can't cut it, kid. Amber on YouTube is wondering if you are sharing what you're making on Friday's live stream yet, or is that a surprise? That's a great question, Amber. I am not 100% sure what we're going to be making on Friday's live stream, to be honest with you. I am debating between a couple of things. I either think we're going to be doing Halloween stuff, or we're going to be crocheting a pattern from my friend's new book. My friend came out with a new book, and so we might be crocheting something from that book, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So I don't know. Answer is I don't know. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll use our little stitch marker and pull that tight. But thanks for asking, Amber. By the way, if anybody has any big Q&A questions, let me know. If you want to know how to do certain things, certain stitches, or you just want to know more about my history with crochet, or what crocheters, well, if you want to know like what knitwear designers I could take in a fight, you know, questions like that, let me know. The answer is none of them. They have needles. You don't want to fight a knit. Oh, no way, man. They got needles. They'll stab you. My wife's a knitter. She'll do it. All right. We're almost back to where we were with that first half. I just finished round 2 where we're increasing up for each stitch. Right now. Okay. Which means we're actually past the halfway point already for this crochet along. I know that's crazy, but seriously, this pattern is pretty easy. It's pretty tiny, pretty easy. And I'll do one more round here of just single crochets around. And we might have enough time to make another one of these with the yarn under technique. We can show Christina the difference of the two, if we get enough time. Amber asks, when did we get Jimbo? What a great question. I got Jimbo, I believe it was 2019, just before the pandemic, I'm pretty sure. And when I actually went to go get Jimbo, if you don't know who we're talking about right now, Jimbo is my cat. He's very cute, very fuzzy. He is, let's see, do I have a, will it come up on my background if I open this? No, that's Phoebe. That's my other cat, Phoebe. It changes every hour. But Jimbo is a very fluffy cat, and he's the best, and we all love Jimbo. He's very sneezy. He's got like chronic sneezes. But when I went to go get Jimbo, they asked me, all right, they said, what do you want in a cat? I said, I want a cat that doesn't have too long of fur. And I want a cat that doesn't play with yarn. And then I went in to go meet Jimbo, and he's the best. I couldn't say no. What was I going to do? He came up, he sat right on my lap. He's the furriest thing in the world. So sweet, so cuddly. And I was like, immediately was like, oh, this is my cat. Never mind. I want a cat with long fur, and I want a cat that plays with yarn. Oopsie doopsie. God, I love that cat so much. He is currently taking a nap, which is great. We're gonna be okay with taking a nap. Okay. Now I finished round 3 again. So now we want to connect these two halves together. Now how do we do that? We want to start from the end of round 3. Heart half B, that's this one. We want to work into heart half A. And we want to start in this next stitch, which is going to be right there. So what we want to do is we want to take our crochet hook here. Let me get my camera a little bit better. And let's get that focus on. We want to go into this next stitch of our first half of our heart. So that's going to be right after that. So right there. And get our crochet hook into that stitch. There like that. And then we're going to single crochet 9 times in the second half. And that's going to be what kind of connects our two halves together. So right here. 1. I'm going to do 9 of those. 2, 3, 4. All right. I wonder what kind of face. Anybody got any ideas? What kind of faces or like special things should we add to this heart? I mean, for the face specifically. Like, do we have any requests? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's going to leave 3 stitches left over. Then we're going to go back to our heart half B, which is this one. We're going to skip 3 stitches. There's 1, 2, 3. Skip those 3. Getting into our 4th stitch. And then we're going to single crochet around 8 times. Wait. Okay, we only want to do 1 single crochet there, just to start the connection, and then we want to sew these together. Okay, so I'm going to pull that out, and I'm actually going to pull my stitch marker out too, and I'm just going to sew these two halves together using this tail end from the end of heart half A, which was our first half there. This sounds confusing, but it only sounds confusing because I'm confused. No, because I'm not going into detail about the tutorial, because I already have a video tutorial where I go into extreme detail about what all these parts that I'm talking about means. Ooh, Christina says a 10mm eye with a wink and a tongue sticking out. That sounds pretty goofy, which is perfect because that's what Jazzy says. Hi, Jazzy. All right, so I'm going to go into all these stitches, just kind of like sew these two together. I like that idea, Christina. I think that's a good idea. Then we can learn a new way to do like a wink too. That's kind of fun. And we can learn how to do a tongue sticking out. I like it. I think that's a good idea. Okay, last stitch is going to be right there. That. I'm just going to pull that out, and we're going to work around this tail end for our next parts. But you can see there's the top of our heart. or the edge of a butt. It's up to you, really. What you wanna think that is. I see your face though. So I was giving a little sly smile about because I said the word butt. All right, let's keep crocheting around. I'm gonna crochet around this heart until I get to the end of this round here. I need to open up the... I just realized this needs to be opened. Band-Aid on the heart. I like that idea, Carrie. That could be a lot of fun. We could try doing that. Or like at least like stitched, like sewn together a little bit. I like that. All right, I believe that's the end of our round there. And we can continue on now to round 5. We only are going to round 7, so there's only a couple more rounds left. And now we're going to start to like kind of decrease it down. It's going to start to create this like pointed shape to, you know, make it a heart. I love the Band-Aid idea. That could be a lot of fun. I think I have the felt that I need for that right here actually. So we might even learn how to do some needle felting today. All right, so we're going to do round 5. That's going to be 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then our invisible decrease. And then 7 single crochets. 1. We'll get a sneak peek, by the way, on our next Camp Crochet at the end of today's Camp Crochet. I'll show you what we're going to be making on the next one. It's going to be a super sneak peek just for the people that are watching. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because I'm still working on the design. But I'd love to share it. I think it'd be a lot of fun to share with you. All right. And then our final 4 single crochets to get to the end of the round. 1, 2, 3. This was actually a really early on pattern. I think I came out with this during like 2020. But I actually designed this when I was in high school. That was when I first designed this pattern. Okay. Now we're on to round 6, our second to last round. So after this round, we'll add our face. We're just going to do 2 single crochets and then our invisible decrease. And then we'll repeat that process 4 times total. And that should bring our stitch count down. We had 16 stitches at the end of the last round. I know I haven't gone into detail about the tutorial part of this. Pulled our stitch out. There we go. But just so you know, we should have had 16 stitches at the end of our last round, round 5. And then now we're on to round 6. And we should end up having 12 stitches around. 1, 2, and a decrease. Yeah. Bruh has joined. I thought you couldn't join today. They are in the YouTube chat. Hi, dude. How you doing? All right. 1, 2, and then our decrease right here. Okay. Now let's add in those customizations. We also are going to definitely need to add a hat to this. That's going to be our design along today, is we're going to be making a hat. So if you have ideas on what you want the hat to be, let me know right now in the chat as soon as you can so we can start getting a vote going for that. And let's go ahead and add our eyes in. Per Christina's request, we have one 10mm eye on one side and a winky face on the other, and then maybe a sly smile was the request. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll start with the eye, and we're gonna go into like this round. I believe that's round 1, 2, 3, 4. So round 4, just on one side of the face. It's a big eye. So I don't know if that's gonna look great with our smile and stuff. We might need to shrink this eye down a little bit. I don't know. But regardless, we're gonna do a wink anyhow. And I know we're gonna do a wink. So we can always replace the eye, but we can't really replace the wink because it's gonna be embroidered on. And here's how I make a wink. A wink is actually, there's 2 ways to do it. You can either just do a straight up line that's kind of angled out. You can do a little, like a V. or a W will work too. But we're going to go to where we want the edge of this eye. So probably like right there. And I'll come out through the center. See if I can't get a better camera angle here. And we're going to go up, around, and then I'm going to just do the V method or maybe the W method. So we're going to up, around, and we'll go, let's see, we'll go into the center of this stitch so it's a little longer. So I'm going to go up one round, and then over one stitch, and then over half a stitch. So we're going to go into the center of this stitch. So the very center of that stitch like that. Yeah. And let's just see how this looks to start us off with. Honestly, that, in my opinion, already works for a wink. That kind of already looks like a wink. And then I'm going to go back out of this stitch where we started right there. That. And we're going to go over one more to make it into more of a V, which will make it look even more like a wink. We're going to go over one stitch and then a half stitch, so we're into the center of this stitch as well. The reason I'm going into the center of stitches, by the way, is because it's just a little bit better of a positioning. That looks pretty good though, right? I think that looks like a wink to me. Yeah, cool. All right, now I'm just going to double knot this. It's fun. You know, if you're watching the Zoom right now, it's very fun to watch. Cooper is dancing and singing. Yeah, there you go. I wonder what they're listening to. Let's tighten this up a little bit. I doubt it's our background music. Cut that nice and close. Okay. So there's our little wink. I'm still not certain about that eye size. I think it's too big. So let's go ahead and add our smile now, and that'll really help us understand if it's too big or not. We're listening to Rebecca Sugar's new album. Oh, I don't even know who Rebecca Sugar is. Is that Rebecca Black's sister? We're going to go up from right under where this eye is. Can you imagine if you named both both your kids were named Rebecca? That'd be a bad idea. And we're going to go over a couple of stitches here. How would you know the difference? Didn't George Foreman name all his kids George? Or something? It's something like that. They're all named like the same thing. Anyhow, we're going to go over 2 stitches. 1, 2. And now we have a straight line. We'll go in the middle of this stitch. We're basically going to do our little smile that we did in our tutorial. That. Alright, so there's our smile. Yeah, that eye's going to be too big. And also, I don't even know if I like that smile. Let's start by changing the eye size, because I just really feel that's too big. Let's try 8mm and see how that goes. Ooh, Steven Universe. I love Steven Universe. I love Adventure Time even more, but I do like Steven Universe. And I didn't know Rebecca Sugar was a Steven Universe character. All right, let's take this one out. Let's try this smaller eye. Let's try it right here first. That's okay. Let's try it one stitch over right over here. That feels like kind of far away, right? I mean, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look bad. Let's just move it over, though. Let's go back over to this stitch. And then let's just fix this smile up. We'll have it come there. We'll make a really, really tiny smile. I think that might be our best option here. So let's pull this out. And we'll try just a really itty-bitty smile. Using essentially the same technique, but just kind of like shrunk down. I'm also going to split this yarn. So we're going to take the yarn. We're going to take these 2 ends at the top. And we're going to split it in half. So that this yarn is half the size. It'll make our smile look slightly smaller, which will help because we don't have a lot of space for our smile anyhow. So using smaller yarn will kind of help make this mouth smaller as well. Carrie Gonzalez wants to know, they always wondered how you come up with all these crochet ideas. They're so good. Well, thank you so much. How do I come up with them all? I don't know. I crochet a lot. All right, let's try. I'm going to come out through the center of this stitch. I mean, I'll show you one of the samples tomorrow. I mean, at the end of today's stream, and you'll see like a little bit more of like the raw design process. Honestly, that kind of made its own little cute smile. Pretty adorable. Kind of did it by accident there, but honestly, that looks really cute. Except for these eyes look too far apart now. Or too close together. Maybe we do want it back over to here. I can't decide. I mean, that will give us more space for like a, if we wanted to put a band-aid at the top, like someone was suggesting. Yeah, I guess that does work. And I was going to try that simple smile thing where I go in between and then pull the smile down, but it's actually making it, it's doing that itself, and I'm not going to complain. That looks really, really cute. So I'm just going to go with that flow. Sometimes that's how crochet works. You just go with the flow of what the yarn wants to do for you. Let's see, I might have just messed it up by tightening it, but we can fix it too if I did mess it up. No, actually, it kind of held its smile. That looks so cute. Oh my gosh, they're just adorable. Let's go ahead and lock this eye in place. So we used 8mm instead of 10mm, by the way, Christina, sorry, but we ended up doing 8mm instead. You're like, oh, that's all right. Okay, let's lock this in. There we go. In our next tutorial, we're going to learn how to use bobble stitches for eyes, which would have been actually kind of fun to do here, but we'll learn more about that next time. Okay, let's do our last round of crochet here, and then we're going to add our requested band-aid after this. For our last round, it's just in 6 invisible decreases. So I've already done this once on our, we did this kind of in depth in our tutorial section. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to go make our invisible decreases really fast. What's kind of nice about invisible decreases, by the way, and one of the big differences between a regular, like a single crochet 2 together, or a sharp decrease and an invisible decrease, is invisible decreases do add a little bit of height to your crochet, which means in a situation like this, it'll actually help us create that little point at the bottom of our heart, just a little bit. See, so it kind of like brings it down a little bit. There's other decrease methods that just kind of like make it really flat, which I use in certain patterns to make like a very flat bottom. Here, let me show you an example of that. If I can. I'm looking for all my, where's all my Halloween stuff? I just had it out yesterday. I must have put it away. Okay. I don't know where it is. Oh, I don't know where it is. I had all my Halloween stuff out, and I wanted to show you a zombie, so you can see the bottom of a zombie, but I don't know where I put it. I'm sorry. Sorry, didn't mean to bring your hopes up and down. All right, we're gonna cut this yarn here, and we're gonna sew this closed. Pull this loop all the way out, that, and stuff it a little bit, and then we'll sew it closed. We might do a little bit of needle felting as well. Happy accidents, that's right. Confused Paladin says in the YouTube chat, happy accidents for the smile. I agree. Okay, we'll pull this to the side, and we're going to just stuff this up a little bit. The important thing you want to know when you're stuffing up one of these little hearts is you want to really get into the top of each of these 2 halves of the heart so that there's stuffing on either side, because if you don't do that, you'll have like a off-center heart, you know? Okay, so that's this side all stuffed up. Let's do the other side now. Oops, something fell. I don't know what it was. I'll find out one day. Oh, it was my pen. All right, just a little bit more stuffing. just about done now. Yeah. I actually think we could do just a little bit more stuffing. Like a tiny itty bit more right here. Okay. Okay. Let's go and sew this closed. And then we'll start customizing our heart. Do we have any requests for hats? I know we'll do a little band-aid. I guess we could crochet a band-aid. I guess that could be our hat, huh? Maybe we'll vote on that. Let's see. We're going to go through these front loops only. And I'm just going to sew all these closed. But chat, what do we think? Do we want to use... Does the heart... do you want to do that little band-aid as our technique? We can learn how to crochet a band-aid. Or do we want to do a different kind of hat? I feel like a band-aid actually is a pretty fun customization for a simple heart like this. And we do have a couple of hat suggestions. Okay, we do from the chat. Let me see. A top hat says Nicole. I love that. Cat ears says Jazzy. We definitely could do cat ears. And then Amber says to do the band-aid. All right, so in the bottom here, by the way, before I continue. Ooh, Steffi. Steffi asked an important question, which we'll answer in a second. At the bottom here, before we continue on, is I want to pull this really tight. And we really want to pull it out so it creates more of a point. So I'm going to pull it tight. Pull it out, see? Because the more I pull it out, the more of that point will be there. And we kind of don't want to ignore that point. We want it to have that point so it looks more like a heart. So I'm going to go right down the center here. And we're going to pull it out from the side somewhere. But I want to kind of maintain that point. So we're going to pull it tight. And that'll close that hole up. And it'll kind of smooth that point up. But we're going to re-fix that point up in a second too. Let's cut the yarn. Kind of unstuff it there. And we're going to grab that bottom. Just kind of pinch it into our point. So that it maintains that classic heart look. Look at that. Tell me that isn't adorable. Oh my god. It's so cute. Okay, Steffi, before we continue on to our next section, Steffi asks, how do you know how many stitches to increase for each section until completion? Well, obviously that's going to be dependent on the pattern. If it says just like increase in each stitch around, like it does in our pattern today, for round 2 it said like increase in each stitch around. However many stitches you had in your last round, that's how many times you're going to increase. So for round 2 of our main little critter here, he had 6 stitches in our first round. So so round 2 was 6 increases total. Each increase is 2 stitches, so that's 12 stitches total. But again, it's going to be a little bit dependent on your pattern. Always read your patterns. Whatever it says, that's how many increases you're doing. And if it's confusing, well, then you might want to count it a little bit more. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. So hopefully that helped. I don't know. I don't know if that was as helpful as I wanted it to be. Okay. Let's continue now and move on to our last part of today's Camp Crochet. And we're going to choose our custom hat. I think we should make the Band-Aid as the option for our custom hat. I think. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So let's go ahead. I mean, I'm personally pro that, but let's go ahead. I'm going to make a new poll now. What hat do we make? And we've got top hat suggested by Nicole. We've got Band-Aid suggested from the YouTube. And we've got... What was the other one? Oh, cat ears. Cat ears suggested by Jazzy. All right. And... save as a meeting poll. Launch it. Okay, I didn't give it a title because I'm silly goof. But that's your vote. Vote between those 3 options. If you're on the Zoom, if you're on YouTube, go go ahead and shout it out in the chat if you want to. But we are doing our vote specifically on Zoom today. And I think I'm going to choose... I think I'm going to choose that one. It's a hard choice. Hard choice. Okay, a nurse hat. That also would have been really cute, Hank. If you were a second earlier, we would have done a nurse hat. All right, Hank, thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a great night. Okay. When will I release a pattern for the woggles? Ooh, what a question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Originally, those woggles, they were not supposed to be crochet patterns. They were actually a creature that I found on the beach. But I could create a closely related crochet pattern, perhaps. I haven't made one in a long time. So I'll have to remember how. I mean, I've never made one, is what I meant to say. All right. Let's rock and roll. We have our votes in there. The winner is pretty substantially a Band-Aid. So that's what we're making today for our custom hat. It's not much of a hat, but if it's going on the head, what's the difference? We're going to be making a Band-Aid here. Now, I'm going to start by trying to crochet a Band-Aid because I think that is what we really want to learn how to do, is how to crochet one. And then I might even make one out of felt instead because that might be a little easier. But let's start by crocheting one. We're going to need some beige yarn for this. Now, do I have beige yarn? I do. Oh, wait, that's not beige. Do we have beigeur yarn? We need beigeur. More beigey. Maybe in our back part here we have beigeur. No, we don't. We have them here. Nope, maybe we don't. Okay. All right. Problem number 1. Find our beige yarn. Aha! It thought it could hide from us. Nuh-uh. All right. For a Band-Aid, we're going to be doing kind of a different technique here. We're going to be creating a slip knot and making chains and then working our single crochets into those chains. So that way we make like a longer piece. We are still going to be working in the round and stuff. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm so sorry. I do need to get my phone set up really quick because this needs to, we need to record the process here so that I can upload this as a video afterwards. So let me go ahead and get that set up. And there we go. Okay, so we're crocheting a Band-Aid here. This is what we want to start with. First, we want to start with a slip knot. For a slip knot, we're going to take this tail end here. We're going to fold it over itself like that to create a loop. And then fold that loop over the end attached to the ball like this. And then pinch the inside there and pull it through. Hold this tail end as you do like that. I did learn a few different techniques yesterday on how to do slip knots. So there's other ways you can do slip knots. That's just, I think, the easiest way. That's the way I learned when I started crocheting. And to start our Band-Aid, we are going to start by chaining. Let's chain. This depends on how long you want the Band-Aid. I think I'm going to chain like 5 or 6. So let's start with 4 and 5. Let's start with that and see how big that's going to be. It's going to end up being bigger than this, but honestly, that's pretty good. Because we don't want the Band-Aid to take up like the entire body. So it'll be basically 4 chains long. So it'll be like that long. I think that's pretty good. Yeah. So we'll chain 5. If you want it longer, chain it longer. It'll work either way. And we're going to skip this first chain right here. And we're going to start to the second chain right there. And we're going to do a single crochet into that second chain. So skip that first one, into the second one right here, do a single crochet. Okay. Now we want to do 1, 2, 3 more single crochets. So single crochet basically all the way down your chain. That should be 4 total. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to be right there. In that last chain, we want to single crochet 3 times. So I already did 1. We want to do 2 more in the same chain. So we're going to go into that same stitch. It's basically like an increase with one extra step. So there's a second single crochet in that stitch, and then one more in the same one. There's 3 single crochets in that stitch. We could do more. You know, if we wanted to, we can make even more to make it even more rounded. But I think that's probably fine. Yeah, I think that's good. Now we're gonna go and we're gonna see how I kind of automatically turned it 180 degrees around like that. We want to work around the back side of these chains, basically where we did our stitches in the last round. So if you look at those V's, you can kind of follow them up. See, there's a V from one of our single crochets. It goes into this stitch right here. That's where we want to work into for our next stitch. So we want to go into that next one right here. And we want to work exactly where we worked those stitches from our first half of this. So we're going to go into the next one right here. Go to that same place where that V is poking, and then do a single crochet into that. There's 1 there, and then 1 to the next one right here. That's 2. Okay, so we did our increase, 1, 2, and then our last part here, we're going to do an increase into this next stitch. So we're going to do 2 in the same stitch for the next one. 1, 2, next one's going to be right here. And we'll do 1 single crochet there, and in the same stitch will be 1. Okay, the last thing we want to do for our band-aid, I think this is going to be pretty much big enough. Yeah, that's going to be pretty good, right? So we can do it like that and sew it on. The last thing we want to do then is we want to slip stitch into the first stitch we made. So the very first stitch we made is going to be right after this stitch right here. We want to get our crochet hook under both of those loops of that first stitch, and we want to do a slip stitch. A slip stitch is basically half of a single crochet. So we're going to take a crochet hook, go under both loops there, and we're going to do a slip stitch by yarning over, pulling it through the stitch, and then through the loop on the hook, like that. That's a slip stitch. We can cut the yarn now. We'll have a long enough end so that we can sew this onto the body. Probably good. And pull it all the way through. Okay. And now the last bit I want to do is we do want to create a hidden end and maybe like a little square in the center so that it looks like the little band-aid portion, or you know, like the little cushion portion of the band-aid. So let's go ahead and start by threading this tail end here on our needle. And we'll go around. We want to do something called a hidden end here. So we're going to take our crochet or our needle. We're going to go around the back of the next stitch over. That's going to be right here. Go around the back of that and pull it through. And then go back down where this end is coming out of. So where this end is coming out, we want to go straight back down into that stitch and then out somewhere on the back through the next stitch over like that. And our goal here is we want to imitate the top of a stitch. So we pull this tighter slightly, we pull this one tighter, and then see how it kind of like imitates the tops there? That's just going to help us keep that more hidden. And now we have a little rounded band-aid. And honestly, I think this alone would work if you just sewed this on like that. But to make it a little bit more band-aidy, let's create just like 2 straight lines here, maybe even a total square between these 4 stitches to create kind of like a little square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tail end and I'm going to come up right from the center of this stitch right here. I want to come up right through the center of that stitch, so that little V. So we're going to go up to the back of it. This. And see how I'm coming out through the center of that hole? That's probably good. We don't need to pull this very tight because it'll pull our whole piece in weird. And then we're going to go over one to the left right there, go into the center of that stitch. And that should create this little line. See, we got a little line there. Now we're going to go in to the opposite stitch right here. We're going to come out through the center of that one. It's going to be right here. So I'm out of that center part. Like that. And then we're going to go back into the center of that last one right here. So we're just creating a little square into that one. That's pretty good. Yeah, I think that looks good. Now we're going to come out through the same spot we just came out of. Right there, like that. And we'll go 1 stitch over to this one. that through. And then the last part will come out through the first stitch that we started with, which is going to be right there, like that. And then we're going to go down through the one across from it right here to finish up that square. Let's see how that looks. I think that should be enough. Yeah, that gives it a little bit more of a band-aid-y kind of feel, right? Just a little bit. If you wanted to fill that in more, we could just kind of like repeat that over and over to create like a little like kind of embroidered pad. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go and sew this onto the body of our heart. So I'm going to go like this. I think off to the center like that. Or we could do it on this side with the wink. Nah, for some reason I feel like it should be on the side with the eye. And I like it like this. So what we're going to do is, first off, there's going to be two ends here. We're going to start by threading this smaller of the two ends. That's the one from the very start. We're going to thread that on our needle first. Then we're going to place our band-aid where we want it to go, which I think it's going to be like, probably like this. And we're going to find where this tail end here is coming out on the inside. So I'm going to grab just the tip there, see where that tail end is coming out, and we're going to go right into the body right where that is. So that's like right here, and somewhere out on the back. Doesn't really matter too much where. We're just going to use this to double knot too at the end. Pull that through. That's going to hold our piece in place as well. Okay, so now we want to sew this part on. Use this to sew the rest of the band-aid on. We don't need to sew it on too in depth. You know, we don't need to go crazy with our sewing on part, but what we kind of want to do is, again, like we did our first one, find where this tail end is coming out on the band-aid. It's going to be right there. Find the stitch that's closest to it. Perfect. Then we're going to place it onto our piece and find where one of the stitches along the edge is closest. So that looks like it's right, kind of like right there. It's kind of like we want to come out through the center of that stitch. So that's what we're going to try to do. Come out through this stitch right here. Pull that through. And we'll come out through that stitch. Under both of those loops is what you want to do. Pull that through. We'll go into the next stitch over right here. Go under both loops there. And then into the stitch that's closest to it on the body. Should be like right there. Now we want to do at least one of these stitches here on the side. We want to embroider it on. So I'm going to come out right here. Just one more stitch up. That. Make sure it's keeping its shaping of roundedness. And we're going to come up through the stitch that's closest to where that came out of. That's going to be right there. Pull that through. We'll go one stitch over, which is going to be right here. This also might help accentuate our straight line, which will be nice. And go into the stitch that's closest to that one, which will be like right there. And what I really want to make sure is sewn down is this part. So we're going to come up through right here, where that other tail end was sewn in. Okay. That's looking pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Okay, and then we're going to come out through the front of these stitches right here. 1, 2. Like that. We'll go one stitch over to this stitch and back into the body. And honestly, is that part? Okay, no. We could sew this. We want to sew this last little bit down so that it's as secure as possible. But we're basically really done. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Go up to this one. And then down through the next stitch over, into the body. And to finish this up, we're going to come and take our crochet, our needle, come out through where the other tail end is, right here. That way we have something to double knot to at the end. And we'll pull that all the way through like that. Alright, to finish this up, we just need to double knot these two ends together and we'll have our little band-aid added to the top of our heart. Double knot that 1 and 2. We can cut it nice and close. And then we're going to take our little... I like to use my scissors for this, but you can use your darning needle as well. And we're just going to stuff that knot back into the piece like that. And there we go. We have a band-aid on our little heart. Oh, it's so cute. I think one other thing that might be kind of fun here is maybe doing like a stitches in the back here. So let's do that really quick too, because I think that would just be like kind of cute. So I'll use my black thread. Yeah, we'll use this. Actually, we'll use our other bit of black thread that we had from adding the face. And I'll show you how to add on just some little stitches so it looks like it got sewn together a little bit. Thread that on a needle. We'll come out pretty much anywhere we want on the outside, and then come out from where we want the long part of our stitches to go. So we're gonna come out there. We'll go down a few stitches, go like down to here, and I'm gonna come out through somewhere on the edge of it. So like right like that. See, I'm coming out in the center of those 2 stitches. The idea here is I want to come out next to it so I can make like basically a little T. And go down to this stitch. We're gonna do that one more time. Let's come out of the center of, because I want another one like right here. So we'll come out, I will come out right here. See how that looks? And then we'll make this one go up to right there, to the center of that stitch. And then take this one and make it come out where our other tail end is. Yeah, like that. And there we go. We have a little simple kind of like sewn together look to it. And we can just double knot this as well. And now he's got a little scar. This poor guy's been through the ringer. Someone hurt him. But you know what? He's smiling. He's chilling. You know, he learned a few things along the way. Cut that short, and we'll just stuff that knot back in. If I can. There we go. Pinch that little bottom so that it looks more like a point. And now we have a little sewn piece. We got a little band-aid. Kind of pulls it all together, doesn't it? And there we go. Okay, last thing. Oh, thank you so much, Christina. All right, last couple things we want to do today. First off, my emo is showing with that little scar. Thank you. Thank you, Zoe. I appreciate that. Emo Louie. Someone in the chat wants me to name their candle man Waxum or Waxel. Waxel. Like Axel with a W. Waxel. There you go. Okay. The last part of today's Camp Crochet is going to be our sew and tell. So Zoom, if you want to, feel free to share your pictures. But before I even do that, let me upload this picture to our website. So we're going to go through this process again really quick. We're going to take our phone here. And let's upload this as a community submission. We're already on our classic heart one. Let's do it a different way this time. We're going to go to our pictures here and click this little icon there to go to community submissions. No one has submitted a heart yet, which is great. We're going to submit our own. We'll give ourselves our name. We are Louie's Loops. And the project name, what do we name our little heart here? What's a good name for a heart? Cardiac. What's a good name for a heart? Cuckoo. I like cardiac. How about cardiac? That's good. Cardiac will work. And we'll choose our picture. Let's go ahead and take a picture. And you know what? I think it'll look best if I have it straight down like that, and then we go straight from above like this. There we go. We'll use that picture. Looks nice. Looks a little blurry on the screen, but it's not that blurry in real life. Let's use it. And upload the picture. Bop-a-da-bop. We have got our picture on the website. We're the first ones, though. So go ahead and add your picture if you'd like to. We'll also have a chance in a second to share your picture. And then also let's look at the Camp Crochet goobers, because a few people have already submitted theirs. Let's look at them. We got Lil Jim Bob from Egib. Loving him. We've got... There's Christina's Slime in Love. Oh, I love the name Slime, too. That's cute. We got Hank's little goober. His name is just Goober. Love that. And then we got mine right there. Okay, now last thing, let's see if the Zoom wants to share any pictures. If you don't want to, that's totally okay. But regardless, if you want to turn your camera on, go for it. Hold on. Switch this to that one. We had a few people bounce out. We got Zoe's cutie patootie. Let's see. There's mine. Christina, you want to show yours? You don't have to. Oh, there's Cooper's. There's Christina's. Very cute. Thank you guys so much. All right, let's finish up today's Camp Crochet because I messed that part up. Let's get all that in there. All right. Last part for today is our next Camp Crochet in a feedback form. So if you would like to provide any feedback, I would absolutely super duper ultra crazy appreciate your feedback. There's a QR on screen right now. That is a feedback form that I've created that will give you, the opportunity to actually give me feedback. There's also our next Camp Crochet. It's going to be called Beyond the Bobble Stitch. We are going to be crocheting a brand new pattern and learning all about bobble stitches. Our workshop is going to start on October 22nd at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. What are we going to be making? Well, I'm not sure if we're going to be doing our crochet along during this next Camp Crochet or not, because I think it might be nice to separate the two. I think that might be kind of cool. I don't know. We're going to get feedback and see if that's something we want to do. But when we do our our crochet along portion of this, we are going to be... Oh, wait, let me go back a little second. We're going to be making this little fella here. This is the prototype. So it's actually going to look a little different than this, but we're making a little cauldron. We're going to be using a bunch of bobble stitches in the top, and what's cool is it's a cauldron that opens up, and you can have a little mini gurumi in it. So our design along portion, we're going to be designing a new mini gurumi for it. And then our crochet along portion, we're going to be crocheting this brand new pattern that is not completed yet. I'm working on it right now. It's got a lot of special little tricks and schemes to it. And then our design along portion, we'll be making that. And then our workshop, we're going to be learning about bubble stitches. Okay. I think that's everything. Thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate you joining today, especially if you are not a complete beginner and you decided to join anyhow and just to watch along. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great day. I'll see you in the next Camp Crochet. Thanks for watching. Pasta la pizza. Happy hooking. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye, everybody. So long. Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Good night. Bye-bye. I'm going to end the Zoom now, by the way, for everybody joining. Thanks for joining, everybody. Bye-bye. And goodbye to the YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, everybody, on YouTube. We'll switch it over to here. We'll be back on YouTube on Friday. We're going to start at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm not 100% sure what we're going to be making on Friday just yet, but I will be making something. So I'll see you live this Friday at like 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Pasta la pizza. Happy hooking in. Oh my gosh, stop. You hang up first. Bye.